I took a numbered ticket as instructed and found a seat. An electronic sign displays the stops and the increasing fare due when getting off, but it has to be the exact fare. Next to the driver is a coin changer for certain yen notes, and only old ones. When the coins appeared, I counted out the fare and put it in another box with the numbered ticket. It required surprising mental dexterity. The next day, I walked to lunch at a famous local family-run restaurant. The owner, Emiko Kinjo, in her late 70s, is something of a rock star in global longevity circles. I'd read about her menus tailored for long life, using local and seasonal produce to promote gut health, plenty of vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and key to my quest, some ingredients special to Okinawa. My table was soon filled with a dozen small plates and bowls, foods of many textures in seasonal colours, dishes run through with the juice of the lime green and flavonoid-rich shikuwasa, or the Goya bitter melon. From shimmering pearly pork to braised green papaya, fluffy tofu, noodles topped with mozuku seaweed, to tapioca and Okinawan donuts. Emiko came out of the kitchen to greet me. No time to chat, but I was encouraged to look at her garden, which she tends every day, bringing years of traditional knowledge to the table along with the produce. She also cooks with food grown by other village grandmothers, or obi, a team of supple suppliers. Underpinning this is the importance attached to maintaining strong social networks, forming lifelong bonds and pooling resources, in turn helping to lower stress and help mental wellness. It's known as the Maui way, or common purpose. I walked past homes with outdoor bars where men met informally for evenings of karaoke, and orchards of bitter melon trees, their abundant fruit ripe for sharing, an excuse for a chat. Time spent in nature is important. Visa Uehara, a young woman in her 20s who has friends in their 90s, kindly shared some tips for Ogimi-style living. Eating well was a given, but not to excess. And no need for gyms or jogging either, when there were those gardens to tend, high-altitude shrines to climb to, and active work fishing or weaving. We stopped at a cafe. The owner's friend came in, just as I was explaining my visit to Ogimi. I hope to pick up some tips for a longer life, I laughed. Though they were too polite to say so, I saw an exchanged glance between them, signalling mild exasperation. They'd heard it all before. The next day I met a local nurse. She revealed she had 4 centenarians in her care, all still living in their own homes. There are many birthday milestones in Japanese culture: 13th, 25th, 49th, and 73rd, to name a few. A chance conversation with a tourist information officer directed me to an even more revered age specific to Okinawan culture, one which her father had just reached, his 97th, known as Kajimaya. Kajimaya means pinwheel in Okinawan dialect, and pinwheels were toys many elderly Japanese played with as children. So the 97th birthday is a chance to mark one's longevity, but also presents an invitation to return to childhood, the tourism officer said excitedly, sharing photos of her dad's recent birthday. A license to be young, all over again. Age, I was reminded, is but a number.
Christine Finn. That's all for this edition of the programme. Thank you for listening. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. And you can hear more about the real lives behind the global headlines by searching for From Our Own Correspondent on bbc.com. And we'll be back next weekend. So do join us again here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC programme.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live downtown in our CBC studios, and it's great to be back with you. Thanks, everyone who covered for me last week. I was unexpectedly away, so I really appreciate people being here for me and for the team. I know there was lots of great programming as we continue to watch what's happening in this province and bringing the stories of joy and sometimes pain and sometimes flooding. So we're going to hear a lot about all those things today. Today in the Winnipeg forecast, cloudy, clearing this afternoon. It's going to be windy and a high of 15 degrees. So this is the week where we're going to take a turn. We've said that, I think, a lot, but we promise, we believe this is the week where we're going to take a turn where it's going to feel a little more warm across the whole province, which for flooding actually is not good news, but we'll keep an eye on all of it for you. We're on air with the morning show until 8:37 a.m. Let's say hello to the team. Mr. Darren Marash is the producer of our YouTube stream. Good morning, Darren. May McKillop's behind the controls today. Hello, May. And then we have Sierra Sanders in, who's covering, directing the program, and she's going to be on air covering traffic in your commute as well, which to this hour looks pretty good. So I'll just make mention of that. Heather Wells has those headlines I was mentioning, and from our news department, she joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, after repeated promises, Peguis First Nation hopes permanent flood protection is near. The First Nation, again, is on the verge of another major flood, despite federal promises of long-term mitigation measures. But Peguis Chief Stan Bird appears confident that will change. He hopes shovels could hit the ground this summer, so we'll hear from him coming up. And after more than a decade of using puppets in the role of pets, Rainbow Stage is bringing real dogs back to the stage. At least 20 turned out for auditions over the weekend. We'll hear what happened there in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Super fun stuff. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
I mentioned Winnipeg's forecast. Brandon, by the way, very similar. You're going to clear today. Your high is 15, but windy as well. And Thompson, some snow should end for you this morning up north in Manitoba. You have a 60% chance of rain showers to clean it up on the back end and a high of 2 degrees. Also going to be windy up north as well. So today we will cover flooding in Peguis. You just heard Heather talking about it. Ian Fraser is going to walk us through the promises that have been made to that community over the years and where we are at in 2026 with some of those promises coming from mostly the federal government for protection. In addition, this morning on the show, school absenteeism, it's up across the country. We've been covering this in some detail. We're going to look at what kids are missing when they're not in class. Stay tuned.
Today on Q.
What are you writing? Oh, I'm a music critic. Oh, cool.
Before she was a film director, Chandler Levac was a young woman music journalist in a male-dominated field who decided to bet on herself and travel to the musical mecca of Montreal. Chandler's made a movie about that time. It's called Mile End Kicks. She'll be here to tell you all about it. Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Iran is threatening retaliation against the United States for violating its ceasefire agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump says a U.S. Navy ship fired on and seized an Iranian commercial vessel. It happened in the Gulf of Oman. Now, peace talks between the U.S. and Iran are being called into question. Iranian officials say they have no plans to show up. The CBC's Tom Perry reports from Jerusalem.
Video released by the U.S. military appears to show a Navy destroyer issue a warning to the Iranian vessel.
Motor vessel Toska, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room.
And then open fire. Another video shows U.S. Marines seizing the ship, dropping from a helicopter onto its deck. The operation was announced by U.S. President Donald Trump on social media. The Navy, he wrote, stopped the ship in its tracks by blowing a hole in its engine room. The seizure and Trump's boasting come as the U.S. and Iran are set to resume peace talks in Pakistan, and as a 2-week ceasefire between the two countries winds down. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance will once again lead the American delegation seeking a resolution to the conflict, though it's unclear who will be across the table. A spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry said today there's no plan for a second round of negotiations with the U.S., at least for now, saying the U.S. has shown it's not serious about pursuing diplomacy. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Meantime, the situation in the Strait of Hormuz and its effect on fuel prices is cause for concern in parts of Canada's tourism industry. In Newfoundland and Labrador, boat tours are a big part of summer season, and now there's some relief for operators starting today. Diesel will cost 4 cents less per litre at the pump as the government suspends the federal fuel excise tax. But as Madison Taylor discovered, there is still some need for concern.
Our fuel tanks run from this part all the way to here.
The fuel tank of the Gaffer 6 rings empty as she winters on dry land in Peguis, Newfoundland and Labrador. She's bound for the water again soon, but will need plenty of diesel to do it. says Luke Gatherall of Gatherall's Puffin and Whale Watch.
Well, it is a boatload, that's for sure.
Based in Bay Bulls, in its peak season, Gatherall's fills its 3,000-litre tank once every 10 days to show tens of thousands of tourists the wildlife here.
We don't let the gas gauge go below half.
Gatherall says a focus on efficiency is essential this summer in an industry that's already fraught with uncertain factors.
Mother Nature is a big one, wildlife is a big one, and fuel is now starting to become a big one as well.
And for larger operators, it's even more important if they want to get folks close to another natural wonder, icebergs.
Well, certainly a concern, for us.
Barry Rogers is owner and operator of Iceberg Quest Ocean Tours. For him, 4 cents off per litre doesn't make much of a dent when it comes to fueling multiple diesel vessels.
To us, that's pretty insignificant, really. If our tanks were empty right now, we'd be looking at anywhere about 20,000 litres.
The price of fuel isn't something these operators can control. But they're maintaining a positive attitude. And back in Bay Bulls, Bridget Gatherall says the family business can weather the storm.
This is the third generation. We've survived for 40 years, over 40 years now. So we try and take it positive and put our best foot forward and do our best.
Madison Taylor, CBC News, St. John's.
Meantime, spring flooding continues to put properties at risk in parts of Ontario. People load sandbags into trucks as rounds of rain continue to threaten several communities. Bob Carter is the mayor of Minden Hills.
It's generally coming from the upper lakes. All of those lakes are filled to capacity or over capacity.
The township, about 2.5 hours north of Toronto, remains under a state of emergency. Several families have also been forced to flee their homes. A similar situation is playing out in Quebec, where several communities are grappling with floods. The rain and recent snowmelt have forced officials in parts of the province to close bridges and roads. As Gwen O'Deara reports, officials are counting on a dip in temperatures.
What I can say is that for now, everything is under control.
Quebec Premier Christine Frichette says the province is remaining vigilant because there are a few regions that are higher risk. The Gatineau region, the Laurentians, the Quebec City area, and Lanaudière north of Montreal are deemed to have medium or minor flooding. At least 600 homes were affected province-wide, with some evacuations.
I invite the citizens to remain informed because the situation could evolve very quickly, and it is important for people to stay aware of the evolution.
As water levels peak in the greater Montreal area, authorities are on high alert. Dikes and pumps have already been installed as a temporary protection measure. North of Quebec City, Rivière Jaune overflowed late Saturday, forcing the municipality of Lac-Beauport to close 2 bridges. Quebec's public security minister, Yann Lafrenière, says the cold weather Sunday improved the situation.
We might be suffering from the fact that this is cold, but believe me, we're happy at this because it's less melting, which means that's the reason why we don't receive a lot of water now. It's not raining. It's not melting, so it's perfect. If it can stay stable for a few days, we should be all right.
The province says it's in contact with municipalities that are affected, and it will do what it can to help and minimize the impact of major flooding. The Public Security Ministry says water levels are expected to recede later in the day. Kubino Duro, CBC News, Montreal.
For the first time since Hong Kong's deadliest fire in decades, former residents are able to return to their homes. The fire at a large apartment complex forced thousands of people to find new living arrangements. Now they have a chance to return, but briefly, to try and retrieve their belongings. Here's more from CBC's Laura Westbrook.
Almost 5 months after one of the worst fires Hong Kong has experienced, residents are returning to see what is left of their homes. Last November, a fire burned through 7 of the 8 buildings in an apartment complex in Hong Kong's Tai Po district, killing 168 people. 68-year-old Mr. Kwan lived on the top 31st floor of a block in Wong Fuk Court. He says he's been training to make the climb in the hopes of gathering some family photos.
Money and belongings are just external things. Forget it. The most important thing is to take my parents' things, and for the rest of the items we haven't used for years, just let it go.
Deputy Chief Secretary Warner Chuk says around 270 people have registered to make the trip on the first day.
The government takes this event of residents returning to their home and getting belongings very seriously.
As the investigation continues into the cause of the fire, survivors say returning to their homes is a chance to gather belongings. and to commemorate those who lost their lives. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
Governor General Mary Simon will play a key role today at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. She'll be giving an address at the formal opening of its 25th session. Simon is Canada's first Indigenous Governor General, and her office says participating in the forum will affirm Canada's leadership in advancing Indigenous rights. Well, a BC couple says what should have been a routine car rental turned into months of stress and frustration. Enterprise accused them of filling the gas tank with diesel instead of gas, and it billed them for almost $10,000 in repairs. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
The engine was nice and smooth, quiet.
Kelly Graves says the car he and his wife rented in Edmonton last year had no trouble. They filled it up with gas before driving 50 kilometers to Edmonton International Airport and returning the vehicle. But a week later, they got a call saying the engine had been damaged by diesel, and they were on the hook.
Yeah, I was a little anxious and blood pressure went up a bit.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stress.
Yeah.
The Graves sent in receipts from the gas station showing they purchased gasoline the morning they returned the car. A photo of the gas pump showed it didn't have a diesel option. On top of that, the SUV had a gas tank that only fits a gasoline nozzle. Diesel nozzles are a few millimeters wider. But Enterprise dismissed that evidence and 9 months later sent a bill for $9,500. John Levan is a Vancouver mechanic who says a gas car filled with diesel would have serious issues, couldn't have made it more than 50K to the airport.
I don't even think it would have made it more than a few kilometers, if that.
The Graves hired Kelowna lawyer Abu Karana, who said car rental companies can't just point fingers, they have to prove their case.
They can't just issue an invoice and expect payment without any evidence. Right?
After Go Public asked questions, Enterprise dropped the claim, saying too much time had passed to confirm where the diesel came from. The Graves say they'll never rent from Enterprise again. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live from our studios downtown on Portage Avenue. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. We'll dip into your weather in a moment. We do get a couple of days of really fabulous spring weather, and then it does actually get cold by the end of the week. But why don't we just stay with today for now? We'll have that in a moment. This hour on the program, some of that cooler weather will be welcome to folks up in Peguis as they continue to monitor what's happening with flooding. Following the major flood of that community in 2022, the federal Liberal government then committed to funding and finding a permanent solution to flood protection in Peguis First Nation. Well, as I mentioned, that was 4 years ago. Once again, residents are facing evacuation this morning. We're going to parse through the promises made all through the years to Peguis. So we've dug into our archives to find out where we have come from and how that community can finally be protected. Stay tuned. Also, really interesting conversation coming up with Corey Funkin, our faith contributor. Is there support for Alberta separatism in the Bible? Well, some of the leaders of that movement say so. So we're going to walk through that as we hear our faith column to begin the show this morning. Right now, let's go to Heather Welsh. She is live in our news center with other details and other stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, relatives of a Ukrainian refugee who was found dead in Winnipeg after being reported missing months ago are now searching for answers. Anatoly Ischenko was last seen in January. His remains were found over the weekend on a riverbank. He fled Russia's war with Ukraine, coming to Canada in 2022. The 30-year-old's family and friends say they still want answers about his death. People packed the Fort Garry Community Centre yesterday to protest plans for potential expansion at Thermea Nordic Spa. Deborah Whitkey, with Friends of Crescent Drive Park, worries if Thermea grows, the park will lose important green space. We'll take you to that community meeting in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Heather Wells.
Hello.
Where is spring?
I know.
Holy moly, everyone's talking about it. I know it's the weather and it can be annoying to talk about the weather, but everyone's talking about it.
I mean, it's amazing how much it does impact people. We should be enjoying some warm weather, which we will today.
Yeah, for like 3 days, and then it goes away again.
It disappears. We're looking at the possibility. The forecast could always change. It's always kind of, precarious talking about an extended forecast for days in advance, but it looks like there could be flurries by the end of the week.
Well, okay, let's start with the good news here. We'll talk to you later.
Sorry.
I went on the air this morning. I'm like, we're making a turn. And then I went in the newsroom. Heather's like, did you look like at the end of the week? And I'm like, okay, fine. We're making a turn for a few days. It is cloudy today in Winnipeg. It's going to be really windy. Winds south 40 to 60. Same with Brandon. Our highs today are 15 degrees. Now, tomorrow, to give you a chance of understanding what we're getting at here, we're looking at sun and 17 degrees in Winnipeg. How nice does that sound? Brandon, 15 today. Tomorrow, looking at sun and 19 degrees. Gets even warmer on Wednesday if this holds. As Heather said, it's always kind of sketch to look at the extended, but we're doing it for some hope. Wednesday, sunny and 21 for Winnipeg. I think we should all get a day off personally, but I'm not in charge of those things. And on Brandon, same similar situation. You're going to have a nice week. Then some showers roll into Brandon on Thursday. Your high is just going to be 8 degrees. Gets colder on Friday with some cloudy periods. Here in Winnipeg, later in the week, as Heather alluded to, it does also get colder for us in the city. So we're going to have Thursday night, 60% of showers moving in. And then Friday, we're looking sun and cloud and a high of 4. So we go from 21 degrees in sun Wednesday to 4 on Friday if that holds. So we'll see. Churchill, finally, I do need to mention, pardon me, not Churchill, I'm going to go up to Thompson. I need to mention that you are expecting snow. Your forecast very different from ours today. That snow should end this morning, cloudy, then some rain, a good chance. Winds will be gusty as well, up to 50 km near noon, a high of 2 degrees. And then cloudy tonight, more rain or flurries possible for you. And then tomorrow, your high is 2 degrees. So that's where we're at, Manitoba. I wish I could change it for us in the long run, but I can't. We also have a couple of big things happening in traffic, some closures, and Sierra Sanders is here to walk us through those. Hi.
Hi, Marcy. Yeah, so far, I will say the commuter line has been pretty quiet as we kick off the show this morning, and we kick off the week, I should say. But something that might get in folks' way here in Winnipeg is westbound Portage Avenue. There's going to be a big lane closure happening from today until Friday. So April 20th today and until April 24th, which is Friday. So westbound Portage Avenue will be down to one lane between Carleton Street and Edmonton Street. And this closure may create some traffic delays in that area there. And that's because of the Portage Place redevelopment. They got some exciting things going on there. And it sounds like this is according to True North Sports and Entertainment. There's an impending arrival and assembly of a tower crane. So it looks like lots of big things happening there. So that redevelopment is coming along, but they do need some space to make sure that happens there. So westbound Portage Avenue will be down to one lane between Carleton Street and Edmonton Street from today until Friday. And that will most likely create some delays there going down westbound Portage. That's kind of everything that's going on right now. I know we do have a highway closure, I should say, up near Russell, Manitoba, due to a washout. I will get those exact details for you for my next traffic hit. But the number to call this morning, if there is something going on out there, is 204-788-3093.
And just looking up those details of near Russell, that washout, Highway 529 for about 5K north of Highway 478 around Russell, that is closed because of that washout. Well, let's get into our first item this morning. It is, in fact, our faith column. Albertans who want to separate from Canada have until the end of this week to sign a petition for a referendum. The people behind the petition have various reasons for wanting to leave. They say economic unfairness over equalization payments, conflict over federal resource policies, and political alienation from Ottawa. But you can add another reason to the mix: faith. That is the message being shared by some Christians in Alberta. But how does faith play into a desire to separate? And what other Christians in Alberta think that aren't part of this movement? Corey Funk had that conversation with our faith contributor, John Longhurst.
Good morning, John.
Good morning.
So what's going on here?
Well, some listeners might be surprised to hear that this is happening at all. Mixing faith and politics is not something that we normally associate with Canada. That's normally something we think about happening in the United States. But for some people in Alberta who are leading the effort to separate from Canada, faith is very important, and that includes the Alberta Prosperity Project. For them, faith is one of the main reasons for celebration. Their messaging states it plainly. They say on their website, faith, family, and freedom are the three things that they want to achieve by separating.
But faith it's a big, broad word, right? So what do they mean here when they say faith?
Yes, and of course, what they're talking about is Christian faith in this case, although a spokesperson told me they would respect all beliefs. As he said, they would have a secular approach to governance, but the belief in the supremacy of God would be paramount and central to their vision of an independent Alberta, along with the freedom to worship as they see fit.
So how are they using faith then to justify leaving Canada? I'm trying to make that connection there.
Well, that's a question I asked Tim Stevens. He's an evangelical pastor in Calgary, and he's one of the main proponents of linking Christianity with separating from Canada. He uses the Bible to promote his vision of separating, and his YouTube videos on the subject have been watched or viewed over 35,000 times. Now, Stevens sees the Bible as promoting individual freedom for Albertans and the province of Alberta, in contrast to what he calls the soft totalitarianism of an intrusive federal government. Stevens also believes that the Bible promotes self-sufficiency, that people should be responsible to look after themselves. He quoted a verse where the laborer is worthy of his wages. And that's why he opposes equalization payments, where wealthier provinces share with those that have less. Stevens also sees Alberta as religiously unique. He suggested to me that there is more support for traditional Christian values in Alberta than elsewhere in Canada. The rest of Canada, as he put it, is under the influence of what he called Marxist and secular ideologies.
So is this a widespread view, or what do other Christian leaders in Alberta think?
No, it's actually a minority view, but they get a lot of attention because they're on a line a lot, and they have YouTube channels, and they have conferences. And so if you Google this, you'll find lots of information about faith and separatism in Alberta. But other Christian leaders I spoke to don't see it that way. They see things differently, and that includes John Pentland. John is a United Church minister in Calgary. For him, the freedom that Christianity promotes is a freedom to seek the common good for everyone in Alberta, in Canada, and around the world. And I also spoke to Jeremy Duncan, and he's the lead pastor at Commons Church, an evangelical congregation in Calgary. Jeremy believes that the goal of Christianity isn't to seek individual or political freedom, but to advocate for the less fortunate, for those who are vulnerable and marginalized. And finally, I spoke with Sarah Bessey, and that's a name some listeners might recognize. She's an Albertan who is well known across North America for her writing on faith and spirituality. She also doesn't believe that Christianity should be used to make a case for Alberta separation. In her mind, the Bible should be used to make a case for unity, for humility, for service, and for care for the marginalized, wherever they live in Canada or around the world. Sarah suggested to me that if some Alberta Christians want to separate, they should only use political and economic arguments, not cherry-pick verses from the Bible just to justify leaving Canada.
So I can't help but think, when you hear about this influence on the separation movement, that, in the U.S., there is a growing influence of evangelical Christianity in U.S. politics right now. So are we seeing some evidence, of that U.S. style of politics here in Canada?
Well, according to Pentland and Duncan and Bessey, yes. Yes, we are. The answer is yes, it's happening in Alberta. And they are concerned that Albertans who use the Bible in this way will end up damaging the reputation of Christianity in that province and in Canada, as they also believe is happening in the U.S. They want other Canadians to know that this isn't the view of most Christians in the province. As Sarah told me, quote, I wish more Canadians knew about the broader church here in Alberta, the one that refuses to baptize the slippery slopes of Christian nationalism that's imported from America and branded with the Alberta flag. Many of us faithful believers here do love Canada, even with its complications, and are working for the good of the whole country.
John, thank you.
Thank you.
That is our faith contributor, John Longhurst, in conversation with Corey Funk, who was filling in for me all last week. By the way, if you have an idea for John's faith column, you can always send it to us and we'll get it to him at radio893@cbc.ca. That sting always kills me. It sounds like Donahue from 1982 or something like that. You know what I mean? Donahue, I'm throwing you back. If you don't know what that is, you should Google it. You'll see a man with white hair. It is 0 right now in Winnipeg. It's partly cloudy, and our high today is 15. Next on the show, let's turn our attention to more serious matters and catch up on what is happening in the war in the Middle East, that is. This week marks a critical juncture for the conflict between Iran, U.S., and Lebanon. As you may have heard on World Report this morning, American and Iranian officials could meet in Pakistan as early as today to discuss a ceasefire due to end on Wednesday. Meantime, though, tensions are coming to a head in the Strait of Hormuz. This is the key global shipping point. U.S. forces attacked and seized an Iranian cargo ship there yesterday. To have a closer look at what things look like this morning, James Devine is with us, an associate professor of politics and international relations at Mount Allison University. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. So I know that we're hearing both sides say they're having, quote, very good conversations, end quote. Where in the spectrum do you think these discussions are at, given what I've just mentioned in terms of developments?
Well, we're just at the starting point of I think, what will be very complicated set of negotiations, and if they continue, could take quite a while to get through. But what we're seeing right now is not unusual. We're seeing, and it's very common when you have a conflict that's been playing out for a while, for the two sides, when they start negotiating, to be talking and fighting at the same time. And this is really what we've been seeing. The ceasefire was signed, and there were negotiations, face-to-face negotiations right away. It didn't yield anything, but the two sides continued to talk through Pakistan as a third party up until now. At the same time, though, both sides are posturing. They're trying to demonstrate resolve, trying to demonstrate that they're not going to give in. And what's happened, of course, is that we saw the United States attack and seize an Iranian vessel yesterday. And the day before that, Iran attacked 2 Indian oil tankers going through the Persian Gulf. So we have these two tracks of posturing and talking at the same time.
Just going off my colleagues reporting on World Report this morning on our national news at 6. Today will be critical because I guess everyone's watching to see if Iran comes to the table after that most recent attack on that ship, as you mentioned, right?
That's right. Iran at one point was saying they weren't going to come because of the attack. The most recent thing that I've seen, and this is, of course, is a very fluid situation, but the most recent thing I've seen is that they're saying they don't plan to attend as of now, which the as of now part at the end is critical because it leaves the door open for them to change their mind before the talks are scheduled to happen later today.
President Trump continues to threaten to destroy civilian infrastructure in Iran if it doesn't take a deal. Do the U.S. threats, do you think, hold enough weight to push the Iranian regime closer to a compromise, closer to something that might be an actual deal that will change the region?
Well, I think they take the threat seriously. Certainly when the first time Donald Trump was threatening to destroy Iranian civilization, they were putting civilians around potential targets to act as human shields. And I think the Iranians wanted to calm the situation down, and that's why they were willing to sign the ceasefire in the first place. Whether those threats are enough to actually get them to make concessions or major concessions is a different story, because the things that they're being asked to give up, namely their enrichment program, but also their ballistic missile program and their support for proxies in the region, and now their control over the Straits of Hormuz, for them, these seem to be existential sorts of issues. If they give up their proxies, if they give up their weapons, they will be vulnerable to attack in the future. And if they give up control over the Strait of Hormuz, they could very easily find themselves in a position where they're being blocked out of their own backyard. So are they going to give up on these things just because of the threats? Probably not. They're going to have to get something back in return.
Air Canada, many people in this country may know, like many airlines, is now suspending service on certain routes as the war continues to drive up fuel costs. Do you think the international community is going to ramp up pressure for a solution because of concerns about the global economy and in wider ways?
Absolutely. I think there's already pressure on the U.S. government to get something done with Iran because of the impact this is having on the global economy, and also pressure on the U.S. administration because of the impact of this on the American economy. Trump, in particular, is very sensitive to fluctuations in the stock market and so on. The problem is this is a very complicated deal. There are a lot of different things that need to be negotiated. If we think back to the JCPOA, which was the original deal that Iran and the United States signed in 2015, that took 18 months of intense negotiations to achieve. And that was just dealing with the enrichment issue. No proxies, no ballistic missiles, no Strait of Hormuz. So we've got a real serious problem here in the sense that we have a complicated set of issues to deal with and a limited time frame because of the economic pressure. And there's going to be a certain tipping point where the United States is either going to have to start making concessions or it's going to escalate. And of course, the fear is that they're going to choose escalation.
It's hard to ask about what a realistic timeline for the peace process might be and commitment to see it through, given what you said. Because if you're talking about things in the past that took 18 months to negotiate, but we have this U.S. president who's negotiating everything in the world like it's a business deal and not necessarily through ways that we've seen, nation to nation negotiations go in the past. But do you have a sense of whether or not this could be significantly faster because of the, for lack of a better word, style of negotiation that Donald Trump undertakes?
Well, the style has been problematic in this context. They expected to get a deal before February 28th when the war started, and the negotiating team they sent, which was Witkoff and Krushner, Trump's son-in-law, were criticized on many sides, including by the Iranians and others, for not being well prepared and not having the expertise to actually make a deal. So the quick style that Donald Trump has is definitely a factor in all of this, but probably a complicating factor, not a facilitating one. I think, please.
No, please wrap up here. No problem.
Oh, okay. The most likely outcome we would get if they were able to have talks today would not be a done deal, but would be a memorandum of understanding, and this is what the Pakistanis have been asking for, which would extend the ceasefire for a couple of more weeks and allow negotiations to continue. And given the complexity of all of the issues on the table, I would expect that it would take several rounds of this before we could actually get a deal.
Really appreciate your expertise in setting us up for the day, James. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
That's James Devine with us live, Associate Professor of Politics and International Relations at Mount Allison University. If you're a regular listener, then you know we have national news coming up at the top of the clock. Coming up next, though, it's time for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 0. We start the morning with clouds, but we're going to see clearing this afternoon. That wind is going to ease up somewhat, and we warm up above normal, a high today of 15. Well, searchers who were looking for a Ukrainian man missing in Winnipeg say he has been found dead. Anatoly Ishchenko had last been seen on Pembina Highway in January. His disappearance triggered a search party that saw more than 100 people scouring St. Vital and Crescent Drive Park in early April. Another search was scheduled for Sunday. But organizer Oksana Burchak says Ishchenko's remains had been discovered in the Red River.
This is the bright example of very smart, good, hard-working guy who would have been benefit to the society and to the community, but instead we lost him.
She says Ishchenko left the Victoria Hospital without being seen for panic attacks, then went to the University of Manitoba and was last seen wandering outside without proper winter gear before he disappeared. She says his mother is flying to Winnipeg to bid farewell to her son. Manitoba's premier is reiterating support for permanent protection for Peguis First Nation. That community north of Winnipeg once again is facing rising waters without any kind of permanent flood protection. This year's flood is forecast to be on par with the flood of 2022, where more than 1,000 people were moved out of their homes. After that flood, the federal government committed to a long-term flood solution, but nothing materialized. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew is confident that is about to change.
Community was asking about this yesterday, and I told them, well, hey, you got me on video saying that we're going to deliver permanent flood protection to Peguis twice today. If they're watching a news conference, now you got it 3 times.
Both Kinew and Peguis Chief Stan Bird say shovels will hit the ground this summer on permanent flood protection. Well, people came in droves to Fort Garry Community Centre to voice opposition to a possible expansion of Thermea Nordic Spa. Joy Stadnichuk wanted to learn more about the potential plans. She says she was impressed to see how many people from the area came to voice their concerns and ask questions.
It really speaks to this is a neighborhood where people care about the neighborhood, they care about the green space. And I love this sort of grassroots movement that started out of it. And it's kind of like power to the people.
People in the area worry an expansion would impact green space at Crescent Drive Park and worsen parking and traffic issues. Thermea says the idea is still in its early stages and will consult with community and will share more details when the plans are more developed. Canadians begin seeing a break at the pumps today as Ottawa's temporary suspension of some fuel taxes takes effect. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced he would pause fuel excise taxes to take some of the sting out of surging gas prices as a result of the U.S. and Israeli war in Iran. Canadians are likely to save 10 cents a litre on regular gasoline and 4 cents a litre on diesel until Labor Day. The opposition Conservatives say a pause until the end of the year would be even better. The CAA gas price tracker recently listed the average cost at the pumps across the country at $1.74 a litre, more than 40 cents higher than a year ago. Iran is threatening retaliation against the United States for violating its ceasefire agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump says a U.S. Navy ship fired on and then seized an Iranian commercial vessel. It happened in the Gulf of Oman. Now peace talks between the U.S. and Iran are being called into question. Iranian officials say they have no plans to show up. Talent on 4 paws.
Yes! Good boy.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Good boy.
Dog auditions for a musical adaptation of the movie Legally Blonde. Puppies tried out for 2 canine roles in the upcoming Rainbow stage production. Artistic director Carson Natras says dogs are big characters in the play.
It just sparkles. Like the whole audience knows immediately, oh, this is different. This is special. And everyone's working together to tell this story with this new live element. And so, yeah, it's a really unique experience. It doesn't happen very often.
Dogs are going to play in the roles of a Chihuahua Bruiser and a French Bulldog Rufus. At least 20 dogs were auditioned. Opening night is scheduled for August 13th. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I don't know what kind of French Bulldog Rufus is, but my dogs would be terrible at that.
I think that would be so cute. How do you train a dog? I guess you can. Dogs are very trainable.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah, they're amazing. But my guys are so stubborn. They'd be like, yeah, no. I smelled like popcorn in the audience. I'm out of here. I'm going to go look at that person and give my best cute face. And,
which the audience would also love.
Yeah, fair enough. It'll be super fun to see the dogs in this production. As they said, it's been a long time. So, all right, Heather, thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Wells is live in our news department through the morning, bringing us the very latest on your Monday morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio. You are on CBC. And Abby is off today, so I'm going to walk you through our regional forecast. It starts here in Winnipeg with a cloudy day that's going to be pretty nice. The next few days actually are very nice. And then it turns to cold by the end of the week. So we start with partly cloudy and 0 right now. It'll clear this afternoon entirely, but it's going to be a windy day. Winds will be south gusting up to 60. Then they do calm down a little bit with a high of 15. Tonight, clear, low -2. Tomorrow, sunny, high 17. Wednesday, sunny, high 21. Thursday, sun and cloud, chance of showers and a high 14. I'm not going to tell you about Friday. We'll just leave that alone and hope it changes for us. Brandon, really similar to Winnipeg. You're going to be clear today, a high of 15. Strong winds that will be gusty around noon up to 50 km from the south. Tonight, clear in Brandon, low -4. And then tomorrow, expecting a sunny day and a high of 19 degrees in Brandon. Thursday, some showers, a high of 8. And then once again, we'll leave Friday alone. And finally, let's go to Thompson right now. You do have a very different forecast than down south here. Snow ending this morning, then mainly cloudy and a chance of rain to clean it up. A high of 2 degrees. You'll be above normal, above zero rather. Tonight in Thompson, mainly cloudy, a 30% chance of a bit more rain and then maybe some flurries. And then tomorrow, you're looking for some more light snow and a high of 2 degrees for Thompson. On Thursday, more snow, high -3. And unfortunately, Thursday night and into Friday and Friday night, more snow expected as well. So a system's going to be moving through for Thompson. Current conditions, as I mentioned, Winnipeg, partly cloudy 0. Brandon's cloudy and 3 degrees. And up in Thompson right now, there is already light snow and drifting snow, and the current temperature is -3. Let's get to traffic. Sierra Sanders is directing the show and also covering your commute. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. I will say, though, I am craving a patio.
Oh,
I would love
know.
to sit out on a patio right now. And,
everybody
I
is.
think everybody's is really like craving that right
Yeah.
now. I know I am.
And I love winter. Honestly, I'm a person that loves my toque and my boots, and like I'm ready for my sandals. If I'm
Yeah.
ready for my sandals, everyone else in this province
I'm
is
ready
too.
for my Blundstones to go away.
Yeah.
They've just been sticking around, and my Birkenstocks are speaking to me now. They're like, you
Sierra!
want me, Sarah? It's time.
Yep.
It's not time yet, but it's okay. Turning to the commute there, I think this is this next tip here might be an issue here throughout the week. Westbound Portage Avenue will be down to 1 lane between Carlton Street and Edmonton Street, and that starts today, April 20th, and that closure will run until Friday, April 24th. So from today until Friday, and that closure will most likely create some traffic delays on westbound Portage and the surrounding area there as well. So you want to keep that in mind. And this is due to the Portage Place redevelopment. They've reached an exciting milestone, according to them. There's an impending arrival and assembly of a tower crane by the construction crews there. And that is actually marking the end of the deconstruction phase and is starting the building phase of the healthcare center that is going in that Portage Place redevelopment there. So keep that in mind today if that is on your route, westbound Portage Avenue, down to 1 lane between Carlton Street and Edmonton Street from today until this Friday. As well, just a traffic closure to note, Highway 579, about 5 kilometers north of Highway 478 is now closed, and that's due to a washout there. And so that is located southwest of Russell, Manitoba. So if you're in that area there, keep that in mind today and ongoing as well. The number to call today is 204-788-3093 if there's something getting in your way.
All right. Thanks, Sierra. It is time for the business news at 21 minutes to 7 o'clock. And for that, Crystalie Ramlakan joins us now via Zoom. Good morning, Crystalie.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So we have Statistics Canada set to report fresh inflation data for us today. What are you expecting in it?
Well, economists are predicting we'll see a jump in inflation for March because of higher gas prices due to the war in the Middle East. So annual inflation is expected to rise to 2.5% compared to the 1.8% that we saw in February. And the Bank of Canada has signaled it will look through this initial inflationary spike tied to the Middle East conflict, but will also act to ensure higher gas prices don't turn into longer-term inflation. And the central bank is set to release updated forecasts for inflation and the economy alongside its next interest rate announcement on April 29th. So people will definitely be watching for that to see if maybe variable mortgages might go up or their lines of credit, their interest rates on their lines of credit. And the central bank is also going to publish its business outlook survey and its survey of consumer expectations today.
Let's move to another story, but stay with energy pricing. What's happening with how they're looking, energy prices overall, because of what's developing in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, oil prices have climbed as a standoff between Iran and the U.S. prevents tankers from using the Strait of Hormuz. So the waterway closed after Iran reversed a decision to reopen it, and President Donald Trump said a U.S. Navy blockade of Iranian ports would remain in effect. So on Friday, oil prices had actually dropped back to where they were in the early days of the war on news that the Strait would open, but now we're seeing that that's not happening happening right now. And the U.S. also says it has attacked and seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship that tried to get around its blockade. So the incident raises questions about the fragile ceasefire that expires within days, and Trump's announcement about another round of peace talks in Pakistan this week is now in question. But like you were hearing on the news there from Heather, Canadians are likely to notice a dip in prices at the pumps today as the federal government's temporary suspension of some fuel taxes takes effect. So it's expected to save Canadians 10 cents a liter on regular gas and 4 cents a liter on diesel. But like you also heard in the news, gas prices, are up overall compared to last year.
And before you go this morning, U.S. businesses can claim refunds, I understand, starting today for Trump tariffs that were declared unconstitutional. How's that going to work?
Yes, so a refund system for businesses that paid tariffs, which the U.S. Supreme Court eventually struck down, is scheduled to launch today. U.S. Customs and Border Protection say importers and their brokers will be able to begin claiming refunds online. And it's the first step in a complicated process that also might eventually lead to refunds for consumers who were billed the tariffs on products shipped to them from outside of the U.S. So this comes as Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada's strong economic ties to the U.S. that were once a strength are now a weakness that must be corrected. So Carney spoke at a video address released yesterday about his government's efforts to strengthen the Canadian economy by attracting new investments and signing trade deals with other countries. We've been talking about his trips around the world to sign new trade deals. And he says the world is more dangerous and divided, and noted the U.S. has changed its approach to trade by raising tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. So Canada is still facing sectoral tariffs on things like steel, aluminum, and lumber. And Carney says tariffs have impacted workers in major industries such as auto and steel and have prompted businesses to hold back on investments.
All right, Crystal Lee, we'll see what happens, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Marcy.
Thank you. That's Crystal Lee Ramlicam with our Business News Live on CBC. Well, let's mention something fun because it's the first hour and you're getting up. It's Monday morning and you can look forward to this. We have something very special happening this afternoon. Winnipeg Comedy Festival is going to be featured on Up to Speed, our afternoon show between 3 and 6 o'clock. So 3 Winnipeg comics are going to be doing sets and interviews. We'll hear also from longtime festival performers and volunteers. So a very special edition of Up to Speed coming up this afternoon right here on CBC Radio 1. So we certainly hope that you can check it out and make sure you make a date to be listening later this afternoon. Well, one of the things we're watching today in the news and in our community in Manitoba here is Peguis and what's happening with flooding. For decades, springtime in Peguis First Nation has meant flooding. According to Peguis, the Interlake community has seen flooding once every 2 years since the year 2000. And having done this job pretty much since 2003, I can attest that that is true. And it's just astonishing to watch people just every spring have to worry about this. And once again this morning, people worried about being evacuated. They are still without permanent protections after years of elected officials making promises and pledges to help. 2022, as you might recall, saw the evacuation of over 1,000 people in Peguis. Many of those people are still out. They haven't returned home. Following that flood, I spoke with then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and several other Liberal cabinet ministers. So we dug into the archives this morning, and this is to set up Ian Fraser, who's coming in the next hour to tell us what's going on now. We wanted to first take you back to hear some of these promises that have been made. So let's go to 2022 and to hear what these leaders had to say then about finding a permanent solution for flooding in Peguis. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Winnipeg today, and he joins us now on Information Radio. Will your government commit to funding a permanent flood protection solution to Peguis? Can you confirm if you're actively looking at a permanent solution or not?
We are absolutely looking at future-proofing communities right across the country, particularly vulnerable Indigenous communities. We need to do more. Part of our disaster adaptation and mitigation strategy is all about building up infrastructure and making sure that floods in the future do not have the same devastating impact on communities, even as we're working very closely with the community to give them the supports now so people can go home and people can feel safe now.
But I'm wondering whether or not your government this morning will commit to funding that flood protection. The chief estimates it will exceed $100 million, and it may be, in fact, a series of dikes. Can you make that commitment to Manitobans?
Listen, we are in constant communication with Chief Hudson on what is needed both immediately around safety and repatriation efforts, but also around community infrastructure and flood mitigation. We know that we cannot keep doing this. We need to make sure that the community is safe going forward, even as we help people now, and that's what we're working very, very closely on them with.
Let's see what Chrystia Freeland has to say about it. Federal Finance Minister, of course. Does the budget include money for permanent flood protection?
The budget, that's a great question, and the budget absolutely includes money to improve our readiness to respond to floods and to help people understand, are you in a flood zone, and to help improve our flood insurance system.
But all of those things aren't permanent flood protection. They're not a permanent. There's a diking system very specifically that's needed at Peguis. It's about 3 dikes. The Prime Minister and I spoke about it. So I know it's a 250-page document. I didn't see that there was money in there to commit to that. So it's correct that that's not yet there?
It is a long document. I would look at pages 136, 137. I think you will see strong support looking ahead to floods.
Federal Minister of Emergency Preparedness Harjit Sajjan is in Winnipeg today. Permanent flood protection solution at Peguis is something they've been asking for a long time. Is your government actively looking at that?
Yes, and I had a good discussion with the minister about this yesterday. I'll be talking. I know that's going through review, environmental review, and so I've already asked my team to get me an update on this, so we'll get an idea what is needed. But it has to go through the appropriate process for this. So I look forward to having greater discussions on this and how we can also learn from Manitoba and apply it to other parts of Canada as well.
So Patty Haidu is in Winnipeg today. She is the Federal Minister of Indigenous Services. Is permanent flood protection in the conversation at this stage, yes or no?
Yes, it is. And in fact, I've been very clear with the previous chief and certainly with the community that we need to sit down together with the province to talk about permanent flood protection. As I said, there is already $2.5 million ready for flood preparation for the spring. And we're working with the First Nation to make sure that we know exactly what's needed. I think the new chief, Chief Bird, signed the memorandum of understanding with the federal government that will continue to work not just on the short-term needs, but the long-term needs of Peguis. And I'm looking forward to working with both Chief Bird and the Premier on what we can do for a permanent solution to this ongoing flooding disaster.
So as you can hear, Manitoba, we've been trying to get answers for you for many years and trying to find out what the commitments are going to be to Peguis so we don't have to once again report on people having to leave their community. Those are clips from interviews in our archives that we did between 2022 and 2023, all in the morning show and information radio, hearing past promises that have been made for permanent flood protection in Peguis. Now, that protection is still not built. You heard me there with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, and former Minister of Emergency Preparedness Harjit Sajjan, and former Minister of Indigenous Services Patty Haidu. So where does Peguis go from here? If it's taken years for commitments to be honored, what is going to happen next? As people very much this morning are still sandbagging, watching the weather, and awaiting news of possible evacuation. Well, CBC's Ian Fraser is going to walk us through those past commitments and why nothing, he says, has changed. He will be here in the next hour of Information Radio. Time right now is 10 to 7 on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thanks for being with us here on CBC at 0. It's partly cloudy, and our high today in Winnipeg is 15 degrees. Bit of a windy day ahead. Well, next on the show, let's continue to talk about school absenteeism. It's a nationwide problem in Canada. Recently in Ontario, they've been making headlines for a strategy for getting kids back to class. The province is planning to tie up to 15% of final marks to attendance for high school kids. Last week in our city, we heard from Kent Dewick, the founder of Inner City Youth Alive.
Well, I think that it's a creative approach for sure, and I'm glad that they're sort of thinking outside of the box. And I think that it's going to work for some students. But what we found is that there's still a group of students that are almost, it's almost invisible. And so those students are going to have a hard time. It's not going to be that will be the silver bullet that will then get them to school. For some kids, that might motivate them, but for by and large, that's really not going to address the core of the problem.
That's Kent Duick, the founder of Inner City Youth Alive here in Winnipeg. Well, for her thoughts on this issue, I'm joined by Tammy Poplinski. She's the president of the Ontario Association for Counselling and Attendance Services. She's a ground level view of the problem in her work, doing some full-time outreach to help kids who are missing class. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You were listening to Kent there. I couldn't help noticing that you were nodding. And I'm not sure to which part you agreed with, and it really was resonating with you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, it's good that we're having the conversation, but I agree it's very complex. It's not as easy as just, taking marks away from those students. It's going to hit some for sure. Maybe some of those overachievers that, feel like they don't have to come, especially since COVID, but it's not going to help those more complex students who have a variety of issues as barriers to coming to school.
And what are some of the variety of issues when you look at this in your research? What are the reasons that kids might miss school?
So there's a lot of reasons. The more obvious ones are mental health reasons, but there's also poverty, and there's also transportation. So in rural schools, there might be no bus drivers, or a variety of number of snow days that are happening. There's also gaps in their learning. So usually the attendance issue doesn't necessarily start in the high school. It starts at the elementary panel. And so once they're, moved along in elementary, they get to high school where it's credit bearing, and the gaps just are too big to come back from.
What kind of supports maybe the kids need then at that younger age level that might keep them in the system and keep them in class moving forward, do you think?
Well, I think identifying those students early. So, instead of, figuring out a plan when a student has missed 50 days, I think, using that 10% threshold, running reports, having attendance teams that are looking out for that threshold number, inviting the parents in, because at that point, it's a family conversation, and, reserving judgment, because it's not a judgment. It is opening up the conversation to see what the schools can do to help support their children so that they feel that they belong in school.
What do you do if the family doesn't care if the kid's in school? I've heard that from some teachers as well.
And you know what? I feel like they care about their child. And so it might look different for everyone. We don't know what their value of school is or what their experience with school is. And we need to be mindful of that. And so it's building the relationship and treating it with hand gloves. And so we need to build that, sometimes slowly, sometimes with, home visits, or really meeting them where they're at. And again, if a parent thinks that you're judging them, they're not going to be invited to the conversation.
It's so interesting because there is, we were doing some stories about alternative approaches to look at attendance and how we view attendance. Because there's some folks that say, this is a hardline thing. Just get your kid in class, bums and seats. That's what it's about. But if it's really about kids learning, then should maybe we be open to more ways of exploring how we evaluate attendance?
Absolutely. And I think the first step is looking at the data. And so I know that our association has partnered with the Canadian School Attendance Partnership, it's CSAP. And so they are a group of researchers that are highlighting attendance across the Canada. And so it needs to start there, because we need to figure out that piece before we start looking at ways to actually help and support them.
Ontario has this proposed law that I mentioned to tie marks to attendance for high school students. You've already alluded, to the fact that may not work for everyone. Does tying? I also heard some of the approaches, being thrown around, like tying marks to missing grad or missing out on something that might be seen as fun versus attendance. Would that work? Do we know if there's approaches that way that work?
So again, I think that might work with those high achievers. But it's certainly not help with the students that are on my caseload. So it's, it can be tricky. I think that the kids that I'm working with, they don't want any part of that. They are totally disengaged. So to threaten not going to graduation isn't usually a big deal to them.
Mm-hmm. Why is being there important, given that so much material is online?
it's hugely important. So students can't learn from behind a screen in their bedroom, right? So they can learn the academics, sure, some of them, but there's so much more to school than just the academics. There's that social emotional learning. It's that peer-to-peer conversations that happen, that conflict resolution, that the relationships between students and their teachers, their coaches, all of those things. Those are skills that students and youth, they need to develop at this early age to move on into adulthood.
Thanks very much for being with us, Tammy Poplinski. Appreciate you.
Great. Thank you so much.
That's Tammy Poplinski. She's president of the Ontario Association for Attendance and Counselling Services. It is right now 4 minutes to 7 o'clock on CBC's Information Radio, your morning show here. Thanks to Corey Funk for filling in for me last week. My name is Marcy Marcusa. I'm your host. Let's dip into a number of things. First of all, let's start with what's coming up in the next hour of Information Radio. So after 7 o'clock, we're going to talk to a former Winnipeg woman who bought a 17-bedroom medieval house in Italy for the price of a Honda Civic. So if you're one of those people that loves, watching some of these guilty pleasure shows where people move halfway across the world and renovate some kind of a historic property, you're going to love hearing from this former Winnipegger. So we'll talk to her. Also, coming up at 20 to 8, it is time to laugh the worries away. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival begins today. We have a special episode of Up to Speed this afternoon. You're going to listen to a special edition as live comics come here to CBC to perform. But in the next hour of our show, we're going to talk to a longtime volunteer who's going to give us insight into what to expect from the Comedy Fest and also a little of what happens behind the scenes. In a moment, we'll check with Heather Wells on those headlines and the latest in Peguis, but right now let's have a look at what's happening in the forecast. So Winnipeg 0 today, 0 right now rather, 15 today is our high, which is a nice daytime high compared to what we've had especially. We should clear from the cloud cover this afternoon. It's going to be windy, wind south gusting up to 60 and then they'll calm down a little bit this afternoon, about 40. Tonight, clear low -2, tomorrow sunny, high 17. So it starts really nice and then through the week it will change by the end of the week back to some cooler temperatures, but we'll enjoy the first few days. In traffic, the big one here is westbound Portage Avenue. It's restricted to one lane between Carleton and Edmonton, so that's going to last the week. Those closures, of course, may create some delays, but it's for good news. They're still working on what's happening out at Portage Place, so we'll see what they're doing there. It is now time to talk to Heather about headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, after repeated promises, Peguis First Nation hopes permanent flood protection is near. The First Nation, again, is on the verge of another major flood, despite federal vows of long-term mitigation measures. But Peguis Chief Stan Bird appears confident that is going to change. He hopes shovels could hit the ground this summer. And after more than a decade of using puppets in the role of pets, Rainbow Stage is bringing real dogs back to the stage. We'll hear about it in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
I'm waiting for Heather to say who let the dogs out. Right? Rainbow Stage? Anyone? Anyone with me? 1 minute to 7 o'clock. World Report's coming up next. Stay with us here on CBC.
Studies have found that artificial intelligence and screens are eroding our ability to think deeply and pay attention. Now, one expert says we need to build brain exercise into our routines, the same way we do going to the gym. Coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth.
تا الان که من خدمتتون هستم در مورد
A spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry says his country has no plans to attend peace talks with the United States, at least for now. U.S. President Donald Trump says his military has fired on and forcibly seized a cargo ship near the Strait of Hormuz.
Motor vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
Trump says the ship tried to bypass a U.S. naval blockade. Tehran is vowing to respond soon and is calling the U.S. seizure of the vessel an act of piracy. Meantime, Israel's military is deepening its footprint in southern Lebanon, issuing no-go orders for 50 towns and villages. The IDF says it is clearing Hezbollah infrastructure. In practice, that means the demolition of entire communities. Our correspondent Chris Brown traveled to the edge of the occupation zone.
The last village you can travel to in southeast Lebanon is Kfar Tebnit. It's near a strategic vantage point, the Beaufort Castle, where you can look across the border into Israel. There are no fences or signs, but on the IDF's digital maps, a new yellow line has been drawn, slicing through Lebanese territory. This morning, an IDF spokesman issued what he called an urgent message, telling Lebanese not to go to 50 or so communities inside that occupation zone, or, as Israel calls it, a security zone. On Sunday, Israeli media were taken to the area and reported the IDF plans wide-scale demolitions to ensure Hezbollah militants cannot launch attacks. Israel occupied this same land 26 years ago, but last time it let the villages and people remain. Shia member of parliament Hani Kobeisi, whose party is an ally of Hezbollah, told us Lebanon will go through the same scale of destruction as Gaza. He said Israel has never ceased its attacks inside that southern zone, and its warplanes still circle overhead. Kobeisi says the ceasefire is already effectively dead if Israel can continue to level Lebanese towns with impunity. Chris Brown, CBC News in Kfar Tebnit, Lebanon.
Officials are warning people in Japan's northern coast they are at an increased risk of a megaquake. Sirens blared in coastal regions earlier today after a powerful earthquake struck just off of Japan's northern coast. The Japanese Meteorological Agency has now revised its numbers, calling the quake 7.7 in magnitude. A tsunami warning was issued. People were ordered to evacuate to higher ground, and waves as high as 80 centimeters reached the shore. Officials say there's now a 1% chance of a megaquake occurring in the next week or so, and residents should have a go bag ready. Back here at home, several communities in Ontario and Quebec are dealing with extreme flooding. Streets and bridges have been closed, and many communities are under states of emergency. Officials have issued evacuation orders as rivers rise and the rain continues to fall. One of the hardest hit areas, the French River. The CBC's Jessica Pope joins us now from Sudbury, just north of the French River community. So, Jessica, what's the latest where you are?
Well, many regions in this area have been dealing with flooding and floodwaters for about a week now. The French River area, which is just south of Sudbury, is bracing for impact. That's according to Mayor Gisèle Pajot. The river there has swollen to levels not seen since about 2019. And like a number of other communities in the Northeast region, the municipality there has been under a state of emergency since April the 15th. Pajot says that a number of families in the community have been told to evacuate their homes due to safety concerns. And in some areas, those flood waters are about 1.5 meters deep. Now, the standing water, seasonal rainfall, heavy snowmelt are putting pressure on nearby dams. And Pajot says officials are working closely with area dam operators as they try to strategically manage the flow.
So talk to me a bit more about that in terms of, as you mentioned there, the assistance they're looking to provide, but also what they're looking for, what they're expecting in the coming days.
Well, the province's flood map still shows a wide stretch, a big red band of flood warnings and watches stretching from Sault Ste. Marie in the west all the way to the Quebec border in the east. So that's Greater Sudbury, North Bay, Manitoulin Island, and the French River, all a part of that. And all of those areas have been dealing with flooding not seen in years. Back to the French River area, Mayor Pajot says the province has sent in volunteers to help with sandbagging. She also says an emergency shelter will be set up today for those who have to evacuate their homes but have nowhere else to go.
Okay, the CBC's Jessica Pope for us in Sudbury, Ontario. Jessica, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
And over in Quebec, officials there are hoping temperatures will stay cool for the next few days to reduce melting snow and keep floodwaters at bay. Ian Lacranière is Quebec's public security minister.
This is cold, but believe me, we're happy at this because it's less melting, which means that's the reason why we don't receive a lot of water now. It's not raining, it's not melting, so it's perfect.
He says water levels should recede later today, but for now, the Gatineau region, Laurentians, Quebec City, and the region north of Montreal are deemed to have medium or minor flooding. Police in Louisiana are piecing together information on the mass shooting in Shreveport. 8 children have been killed, 2 women injured by gunmen. Police say 7 of the victims were his young children. The women are being treated for serious injuries. As Steve Fetterman reports, the community has been left shaken by the details of the crime.
I was born and raised in Cedar Grove, so that was the neighborhood I grew up in.
The enormity of the crime is hard for people like this man who lives in the Cedar Grove section of Shreveport to fully grasp. Alan Jackson is a Shreveport city councilman.
It's just been a tough day. It's the worst probably in Shreveport history.
Lisa Deming lives 2 doors down from where the killings took place. She knew the children.
Their baby. Their baby.
Police last night identified the young victims, 8 children, 3 boys and 5 girls, ranging in age from 3 to 11. 2 women were also shot and critically wounded. The gunman, 31-year-old Shamar Elkins, tried to escape. He led police on a high-speed chase and was eventually shot and killed. Authorities say the killing stemmed from a domestic dispute. Elkins was the father of 7 of the 8 children. One of the women shot was his wife. The marriage had been failing. One news report says the 2 were due in court today. Tabitha Taylor is another city council member.
I don't know what people think in the crevices of their mind.
According to the New York Times, in recent weeks, Elkins had openly discussed his own mental health challenges. On Easter Sunday, he reportedly told his mother that he was drowning in dark thoughts and wanted to end his life. In a country where mass shootings have become commonplace, this is the deadliest since 2024. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is trying to fend off calls for his resignation. Last week it was revealed he appointed Peter Mandelson ambassador to the U.S., even though Mandelson did not receive security clearance. As Crystal Gamansing tells us, Starmer will try to clarify his position in Parliament today.
The central charge made by the opposition that somehow he knowingly misled Parliament or the public is simply untrue.
Labour MP Douglas Alexander is one of many lining up in defence of the Prime Minister. Liz Kendall is another, appearing on the BBC programme Sunday with Laura Koonsberg.
Keir has already said that it was a mistake to make the appointment, and he has apologised for it.
The scandal around Peter Mandelson's appointment as U.S. ambassador in 2024 has moved beyond revelations in the Jeffrey Epstein files. Those showed he maintained a relationship with the late convicted sex offender and, as a cabinet member, may have shared sensitive government information with Epstein between 2009 and 2010. Last week, The Guardian newspaper reported Mandelson had failed his security vetting, but the Foreign Office granted him clearance anyway, paving the way for his appointment. Lisa Smart is a Liberal Democrat.
The book stops with the Prime Minister, and his position isn't tenable. He should go.
Labour members are, however, putting the blame with the Foreign Office. Douglas Alexander says the PM didn't know the steps it took.
Because information was withheld.
It's expected later today Starmer will argue in the House he didn't knowingly mislead Parliament, a technicality that could save his job. The opposition, however, is not likely to let him off the hook so easily. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Well, there's a little bit of spring for us to start Monday morning, Manitoba. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio. We're live downtown in Studio 15 in Winnipeg. You are on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. So we'll get into that forecast to start your Monday and your week in just a moment. A nice sky in downtown Winnipeg. This hour on the program, we're going to be talking about something that is critical, and it's related to weather, flooding in Peguis. We're going to find out more about what is happening in that community. Following the major flood of 2022, the federal Liberal government committed to finding a permanent solution to flooding in Peguis First Nation, but the water there continues to rise. People this morning still awaiting an evacuation notice that may come. So CBC's Ian Fraser is going to bring us the very latest of what's happening in Peguis. And of course, we have warm weather to start the week and then colder weather near the end of the week, which may in fact help the situation. So Ian's here just before 8. Stay with us. Also, straight ahead, if you're one of those people that loves watching a good show full of eye candy where people drop everything and they move across the globe and then they do some big historical renovation, you're going to love the first interview we have because it's a former Winnipegger who is doing that on a medieval property. So stay tuned. Right now, let's go to Heather Welsh. She has other news developing today. Good morning.
Good morning. A Ukrainian man who went missing over the winter has been found dead. Anatoly Ishchenko's remains were recovered from the Red River near Lindale Drive over the weekend. His cousin, Denis Mashchevsky, says while this is not the outcome his family had been hoping for, he is grateful for all the efforts to find him. We'll hear from him coming up. As well, people packed the Fort Garry Community Center yesterday, protesting plans for potential expansion at Thermea Nordic Spa. Deborah Whitkey with Friends of Crescent Drive Park worries if Thermea grows, the park will lose important green space. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
So I mentioned a nice sky in downtown Winnipeg. I can see a little bit of blue, but it is a mixed bag. So it's mostly cloudy right now, and it is 0 in the city of Winnipeg. In Brandon, cloudy. It's right now -4. It's 4 degrees above 0 right now in Brandon. And then up in Thompson right now, light snow and drifting snow, and the temperature's -3. So for southern Manitoba, Winnipeg and Brandon today will be around 15 degrees. We're going to be really windy to start, then calming a little this afternoon. We're talking winds south at 60, calming to 40. And as I mentioned, high of 15. Be nice for a couple days, like we're talking sun and 19 degrees and 21 degrees in Winnipeg and Brandon coming up, on Wednesday. So the beginning of the week looks warmer. It does get colder by the end of the week once again, though, if the forecast holds. In Thompson, just briefly here, you're at -3. You have light snow and blowing snow, as I mentioned. That should end this morning, the snow, and your high today is going to be 2. Cloudy tonight, though, chance of some rain showers for you up in Thompson tonight. Okay, let's get into the morning commute. We have a couple things going on. Sierra Sanders is here to tell us about them. Good morning.
Hi, Marcy. The commuter line so far this morning has been pretty quiet, so no recent backups or any situations going on right now here in Winnipeg that I know about. Of course, the phone line is always open, so you can always give me a call. But I think a reoccurring problem that's going to be happening this week is westbound Portage Avenue is going to be down to 1 lane between Carlton Street and Edmonton Street. That starts today and will be going until this Friday, April 24th. And so this closure may create some traffic delays on westbound Portage and surrounding areas as well. So you will have to get into the far median lane there. So you'll have to go all the way to the left. So you'll have to keep left to get through that area there. I came up on my drive this morning and I was like, oh, that is something that might cause some issues today, but it's all in part of good things happening there, marking the end of deconstruction there on the Portage Place redevelopment and going into the building phase of the new health center that's going to be there. So good things, but might cause a little issue this morning. Highways around Winnipeg and out to the west, a little up north and to the south of us are looking pretty good, but just some highway closures to note there. Highway 579 for 5 kilometers north of Highway 478 is closed. This closure is due to a washout, and that is located southwest of Russell, Manitoba there. And then another highway closure, which kind of just came in here recently, Highway 475 from Road 163 to Road 164 is now closed. And this closure is due to a sinkhole on the highway there. And this area, I should say, is west of Foxwarren in Manitoba there. So a couple of highway closures to note and a little bit of a reoccurring problem here in Winnipeg. But if there is something that is getting in your way and you want to let me know about, the number is 204-788-3093.
Did I ever tell you my washout story, Sierra Sanders?
You have a story for everything.
I do have a story for everything. This one actually is related to Peguis.
Okay.
So I was assigned to drive to Peguis to cover flooding, which of course I can't remember the year because you flooded so much, Peguis, sorry to say. But I was driving up. This is a recent memory, though, so it's probably around 2022. And I was driving up to get there, but I thought, I'll go the back way. Like, I know Manitoba. Well, I drive up one road, and all of a sudden the road's gone. And I'm looking ahead of me thinking, okay, the road's gone. I'll just go on a map and see exactly where I've got myself to. There's no cell service. So now I'm stuck there and I'm like in my vehicle and I can't talk to anybody and I can't actually turn around because my vehicle could have got stuck because it was also getting really soft and mushy. So yeah, I had to turn around. Sorry, I didn't turn around. I had to back up. Like I had to go in reverse the whole way really slowly, praying that I wasn't going to like get in the ditch. And then thank goodness there was like barely any properties around, but there was somebody there and they were going to school in the morning. They were getting driven to school. So whoever that person was, if you remember helping me, Marcy from CBC, thank you all these years later. Because if you wouldn't have been up and going to school that morning, I would still be stuck there today probably. There was nobody for miles around. And then I navigated my way out because, you know, people who live live rurally in this province know every turn and every road that is good. But be careful when you hear about those washouts because, yeah, they can stop you in your tracks.
You could be like Marcy.
Yeah, don't do that. 788-3093 with any updates, folks. Well, I alluded to us starting with a really fun story about someone who's taken on quite a project. From the glitz and glamour of LA to the tranquil countryside of Italy. When former Winnipegger Kiki Lee was 14, she moved from Winnipeg to LA. But then 15 years later, she decided to flip home and her life. So she right now is renovating a 17-room medieval house in Musumele, Sicily. It's a town with a population similar to Selkirk. Why the move? She spoke with Corey Funk all about it on Friday after the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So just describe the town of Musumeli and how you came to fall in love with it.
Musameli is different from anything that I've ever experienced. It's a small place. It's very community oriented. Everybody knows each other. And when I say everyone knows each other, it's really everyone. You cannot leave your home without running into somebody that you know. And it's such a beautiful, tranquil place. It's a medieval village, so the whole town is steeped in history. I live next to a castle. It's an absolutely incredible place. The food is incredible. Everything comes from less than a couple miles away, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful experience and place. Unlike anything that any of us in North America could even really understand.
And so now just for people watching on YouTube, so you're not actually in Musumeli right now. You're in a beach community while your house gets kind of renovated right now, just for people who are wondering. But let's start from the beginning here. So I actually understand this whole I'm going to buy a house in Sicily thing wasn't like a long-term dream of yours. It actually came on a bit of a whim. So tell us how you came to make the decision to buy a house and renovate a big medieval house in Sicily.
Yeah. I know it sounds kind of wild, but yeah. So I've always really had an affinity for renovating and restoration, but it was never something that seemed like it could be realistic for me. I don't have any experience in construction or in renovation. I've always been a renter my whole life. And I just kind of came upon this video on TikTok of a woman showing the homes in her area. And she said, this house next door to me is selling for $60,000. This house next door to me is selling for $45,000. And, you know, these were big properties. They were also a lot of work, obviously. But I was ready for some sort of change in my life. I was ready to take on a new project. And it kind of seemed kismet. It seemed like it was kind of the perfect opportunity for me to do something that I had wanted to do for a long time, but never really thought that I had the agency to do.
Did you know, like, hey, like I'm going to leave here being a homeowner in Sicily, or were you just open to it?
When I got on the plane, I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew that there were amazing homes for sale, and I knew that I wanted to do this, and that was the intention of going on this trip. However, I was open also to the idea that maybe it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going with this intention that no matter what, I'm going to find a home and that's it. I did initially find one home that I really liked. I put an offer on it. The offer got rejected, and so that was a bit of a gut punch. And then 15 minutes later, my agent called me back, said they had another home. I went and saw that, and that ended up being the one that I ended up getting.
I'm sure everyone's wondering, how much did you pay for it?
I paid 27,000 euros
And
for
that
this home.
and what's that roughly in Canadian? I don't know if you can convert on the spot here.
I think that's around like 35,000 Canadian.
Wow. And just describe the
Yeah.
scale of this house that you got for
Yeah.
35,000
So
Canadian.
it's 4,300 square feet. And it's 17 rooms, 4 of which will be bedrooms, are going to be bedrooms. And then, so initially, because this house is a medieval age house, the original plans are 600 years old.
Wow.
It's a bit of a maze. That's a comment that I get a lot on
Mhm.
my videos, that this house feels like a maze. But when you're actually inside of it, obviously it feels a little bit different. It feels more like one home.
I've seen the things online where like buy this house in Italy for $1. Is it kind of in that
Yeah.
realm of where there's people going there, they're trying to attract more people to come live in these towns that are quote unquote dying?
Yeah. So the municipality has created this initiative to bring in foreigners who can buy homes, restore homes. And we have a really incredible mayor who tries to do his best to make connections with the foreigners that are coming, because obviously it's a completely new world to so many of us, and he's done a lot of really amazing work with the expat community. And also, just, I don't know how he's done it, but he's created an amazing harmony between the locals and the expats as well.
And if I can ask, how much money, like, because I'm sure people are curious as well, you put about
Yeah.
35 grand into buying it. How much money are you putting into renos?
So I know in euros it's going to come out to be about like 100,000 euros only, which is a really affordable price for such a massive project.
And I mean, for you, is long-term plan, like, will you become an Italian citizen one day, and this is where you retire?
Potentially. I mean, that's pretty far ahead. I turn 29 next week, so who knows where I'll retire. But I mean, I love this place so incredibly much, and I'm in the process right now of getting Irish citizenship through lineage. So once I become a citizen of the EU, then I'll be able to permanently transfer my residency from Ireland to Italy. So that'll make it a lot easier for me to stay here permanently and really plant my feet and build a life.
Well, Kiki, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's Kiki Lee in conversation with Corey Funk about a home that she bought. She's a former Winnipegger, and she's currently renovating a 17-room medieval house in Italy.
Like the summer breeze, you got me dreaming, floating high up in the clouds. You can hear me calling from the mountaintop. Every word I say rings true. So easy, you make every moment feel so easy. Never dreamt a love like this could free me. You're everything, the one that I need, the one that I need. Wanna hold you in the morning, kiss you every night. You're the missing piece in my life. No one takes my breath away like you. Every word I say rings true. So easy, you make every moment feel so easy. Never dreamt a love like this could free me. You're everything, the one that I need, the one that I need.
You feel like we're in a club together, Scott Regera?
Yeah, pretty
Tuning
cool
in?
club at that. Yeah,
Right?
no, this is just good stuff on a Monday morning.
Yeah, well, you know, we're being nice to Montreal. So this is Montreal-based singer Clairel and So Easy, which is
Yeah.
what they're hoping their playoff run's going to be.
Yeah. Well, if it's just as smooth as that tune, I'll be all for it.
They played their first game of the playoffs already. Montreal did. How'd it go?
Yeah, I mean, listen, after that promising, albeit fairly short run in the postseason last time around, expectations for this young Habs outfit, they're higher than they've been in a while. A job done last night, though. Yuri Slafkovsky, who was so good at the Olympics, remember, for Slovakia, he had a hat trick last night, all those goals on a power play. And the last of them came in overtime. So the Habs win their opener against Tampa Bay, which means the pressure now, Marcy, is squarely on the Lightning's shoulders. Consider that since Tampa Bay, they very nearly won 3 cups in a row. But since then, they have bowed out in the opening round of the playoffs the last 3 seasons, which helps explain their coach John Cooper's ornery mood last night.
I mean, come on, we took 4 offensive zone penalties. I mean, that's not over-aggression. That was like stupidity in a lot of them. So that was on us. That was a game that we just gave them an opportunity to win. And this is the Stanley Cup playoffs. This isn't game 62. So that is extremely disappointing.
Never pulls punches. John Cooper always tells you what he's really thinking, which I appreciate. Game 2 goes tomorrow between the Lightning and the Habs. As for this evening, Marcy, Canada's other 2 playoff teams are in action. The Senators looking to even up their series with Carolina, and Edmonton beginning its playoff run against Anaheim. What's your sense, Marcy? Are Winnipeggers embracing any one of these Canadian teams? You seem to be sort of siding with the Habs early on.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I'm equipped to say. I think that's a Heather Wells question.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, I think people are still just sad about the Jets. I don't think we're quite over the season that was yet.
No, fair enough. There was the Angus Reid poll. We talked about this a bit last week that suggests more Canadians than ever just want a team from this country to win the Stanley Cup, 72%. So, I'm on board with that.
I'm on board
Any
with
one
that
of them
too.
would be great. Yeah.
Let's talk basketball. Speaking of Canadian teams, the Raptors are continuing their playoff series tonight.
They are, and they'll be hoping, Marcy, things don't end the way they did the first time out against the Cavaliers. Toronto got thumped in Cleveland on Saturday, looking, well, frankly, overmatched by the Cavaliers' veteran tandem of Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. That said, there were positives, with youngsters Colin Murray-Boyles and Jamal Shead both impressing in their NBA playoff debuts. They certainly made an impression on their coach, Darko Rajakovic.
Right now I have goosebumps, to have such a young team, to have Jacoby and, CMB is a rookie, 20 years old, playing against a really good veteran team. There is so much to learn. This is going to make us so much better.
Now, Toronto could get a major reinforcement tonight. Regular starting guard Emmanuel Quickly has been dealing with a hamstring issue, but is said to be ready to go possibly. The Raptors do need somebody to step up, and even then, beating Cleveland is a tall task, and I say that because Toronto has fallen in 11 straight playoff contests now against those Cavaliers. Tip-off, 6 o'clock Central this evening.
Let's finish with a little footy.
Yeah, some were calling yesterday's match between title contenders Arsenal and Manchester City, Marcy, the Super Bowl of the English Premiership. With a win, City would have control over their own destiny with just a handful of games to go in the World's League, top league. Thanks to the planet's best goal scorer, that's now the case.
O'Reilly. Haaland! City back in front!
Erling Haaland with what ended up being the deciding goal. Man City still need to win their final 6 matches to steal the title from underneath hard-luck Arsenal, so there's still work to do. Enough work that, as a City supporter since I was a little kid, I'll resist the temptation, Marcy, to play their theme song, Blue Moon, right now. That said, the Smiths are always a good listen on a Monday morning. Arsenal based in London, and I'm sure I'm about to get some emails from their supporters. Your look at sports.
Yeah, you're playing with fire there, my friend.
Back to the Montreal-based music, maybe.
Take care. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, you bet.
Scott Regier with Morning Sports. Coming up, we'll tell you about a couple issues going on in traffic. One of them on westbound Portage Avenue. We'll also have your latest weather forecast and more. Right now, though, time for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. This is the day Winnipeg finally warms up, an above normal high of 15 this afternoon. A little windy this morning and cloudy, but that cloud cover will clear out and the wind will ease up a little bit. After repeated promises, Peguis First Nation hopes permanent flood protection is near. The First Nation is again on the verge of another major flood, despite federal vows of long-term mitigation measures. But Peguis Chief Stan Bird appears confident that's going to change, striking an optimistic tone, speaking with reporters.
Positive. I think we formed some good relationships, strong partnerships with the province of Manitoba and the federal government. So we're looking to, shovels could hit the ground as early as this summer.
The federal government has only said it is working with Peguis and Fisher River Cree Nation to develop some long-term protections. You can hear more on this story coming up on Information Radio. A Ukrainian man who went missing this winter has been found dead. Anatoly Ischenko's remains were recovered from the Red River near Lindale Drive over the weekend. That's according to those who helped organize search parties for the 30-year-old man. Denis Maschevsky says he wants his cousin Ischenko to be remembered as hardworking and sensible. While this is not the outcome his family had been hoping for, he is grateful for the efforts to find him.
The Ukrainian community came together with impressive strength, and I hope that other communities can come together and support each other, because I know there are many missing people in Winnipeg and there are only so many resources. We're lucky we got closure, and we wish the same for other missing people. It does take a community.
Ischenko was last seen on Pembina Highway in January. A family spokesperson says he left Victoria Hospital without being seen for panic attacks. More than 100 searchers had scoured St. Vital Park and Crescent Drive Park for him earlier this month. People packed the Fort Garry Community Centre yesterday, protesting plans for potential expansion at Thermea Nordic Spa. Deborah Whitkey, with Friends of Crescent Drive Park, helped organize the meeting. She worries if Thermea grows, the park will lose important space.
I'm one of many people who have used those green spaces and do not want us to lose the beauty, the accessibility.
Thermea has held discussions with area residents about changes being considered at the site, including a boutique lodge, sidewalks, expanded parking, and upgrades to existing facilities. It says the idea is still in the early stages and the spa will consult with the community before going ahead. Well, you may have noticed as you're out driving out and about today, the gas price is down. And it will be down from today until Labor Day. A federal tax break at the pumps. Ottawa's temporary suspension of some fuel taxes takes effect, softening the hit of surging gas prices amid 7 weeks of war between the U.S. and Israel against Iran. Canadians can expect to save 10 cents a litre on regular gasoline and 4 cents on diesel until Labor Day. Iran is threatening retaliation against the United States for violating its ceasefire agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump says a U.S. Navy ship fired on and seized an Iranian commercial vessel. It happened in the Gulf of Oman. Now peace talks between the U.S. and Iran are being called into question. Iranian officials say they have no plans to show up. Governor General Mary Simon will play a key role today at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. She will give an address at the formal opening of its 25th session. Simon is Canada's first Indigenous Governor General, and her office says taking part in the forum will affirm Canada's leadership in advancing Indigenous rights. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Well, talent on 4 paws.
Yes! Good boy.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Good boy.
Good boy. Dogs auditioning there for a musical adaptation of the movie Legally Blonde. About 20 puppies tried out for 2 canine roles in the upcoming Rainbow Stage production. Artistic director Carson Natras says dogs are big characters in this play.
It just sparkles. Like the whole audience knows immediately, oh, this is different. This is special. And everyone's working together to tell this story with this new live element. And so, yeah, it's a really unique experience. It doesn't happen very often.
You can see it all happen. Opening night of Legally Blonde on Rainbow Stage is set for August 13th. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
It is time now on CBC for your regional forecast. Abby's off today, so I'm going to cover this for you. And I can tell you that the beginning of the week really looks fantastic. So if you're going to make plans to hit a patio, be outside, go for a really long walk, make those plans between now and Wednesday, Thursday, because by Friday, if the forecast holds, it'll get cool again. But for today in Winnipeg and Brandon, a high of 15 degrees. Let's stick with Winnipeg here. Your winds are south. Our winds are south. They're going to gust up to 60 km. They'll calm down to about 40 this afternoon. Clear tonight, sunny tomorrow, high 17. And on Wednesday in Winnipeg, we could see a high of right around 19 degrees, which will be really nice. So we're looking at that for our forecast. Pardon me, Wednesday's high is sunny and 21 degrees. Right now, though, it's partly cloudy and we start with just 0. Over in Brandon, very similar forecast. If you're looking at the maps, you're going to see that. In Brandon, your high 15 degrees today and also windy. Gusty near noon. Tonight, clear low -4, and your high on tomorrow is 19 degrees on Tuesday with lots of sun. Coming up Wednesday, mix of sun and cloud and a high of 19 as well, and you're sitting at 4 right now. And then finally up in Thompson, different situation in the weather. Your snow should end this morning. You've had light and drifting snow through the morning, and then you'll have a cloudy day, 60% chance of some rain showers on the back end, gusty winds and a high of 2. So not all that nice up in Thompson today. Mainly cloudy tonight, chance of showers again, and then a chance of flurries overnight. Tomorrow, cloudy in the morning, some light snow expected and a high of 2 degrees. And then through the weekend, Thompson expecting snow Thursday and Friday and Saturday. So your highs are going to be right around -3 from Thursday, and then you'll be around -1 by Saturday. Currently in Thompson, if you're waking up there in that city, it's -3, and winds are south at 36 km. It's 23 minutes to 8 now. Here is Sarah Sanders coming in with some traffic.
Good morning, Marcy. Well, the commuter line has been pretty quiet so far this morning, so it sounds like things are moving pretty smoothly out there, at least here in Winnipeg and around it. Just wanted to note that westbound Portage Avenue will be down to 1 lane between Carleton and Edmonton Street starting today until Friday, and so that might cause some traffic delays, especially going westbound and in the area there as well. So you want to keep that in mind. You have to go all the way to the left to get past that area there, but it's all for good things happening for the Portage Place redevelopment as they end their deconstruction phase and are starting to go into the building phase, I should say, for their healthcare center of excellence there. Highways around the city are looking pretty clear right now, but there are some closures that you can note. Highway 579 for 5 kilometers north of Highway 478 is closed, and that closure is due to a washout, and that is kind of located southwest of Russell, Manitoba there. As well, Highway 475 from Road 163 to Road 164 is closed, and that's due to a sinkhole on the highway, and that is west of Foxwarren here in Manitoba. So a couple of things to note, but so far nothing current happening right now on the roads that you should be aware of. But if that's not the case and there is something that you want to let me know about, the number to call is 204-788-3093.
My grandmother told me about God. She basically said to me, Jan, Jesus sees you everywhere you go. Everything you do, Jesus the Lord our God sees you. And I swear to you on my mother's life, for 1 year, I peed and pooed under a towel. I took a towel off the rack and I placed it on my lap because I was mortified about Jesus seeing me poo.
That was a clip of singer and comedian Jan Arden doing some of her act. Now, she's one of the performers, bringing her hilarious stories to Winnipeg Comedy Festival, which does start today. This year, the Comedy Festival is turning 25 years old. And to share some insider backstage details of some of her best moments is Danielle Carrier, who's been volunteering with the festival almost since the beginning, and she joins us now. Good morning, Danielle.
Good morning.
So 25 years of the festival. How long have you been volunteering around?
For 24.
Wow.
I was a patron in the first year, and I have a lot of friends who also volunteer who suggested that might be something I'd want to do for the next year. So starting in the second year, I started volunteering and have been doing it ever since.
I love that. What kind of positions have you volunteered in? Like, are you giving people programs or doing setup, or what have you been doing?
Well, over the years, I pretty much have done every volunteer job there is. I've worked at box office. I've sold merchandise. I've been an audience ambassador, and now I'm a venue supervisor, and I'm the party crew chief.
What stories have stayed with you over the years, given that you've had, a lot of different roles and you must have met a lot of people? What stayed with you in terms of I met so and so or this happened backstage and you won't believe it?
Well, I can't really give you too many backstage stories, but I mean, it's been an amazing opportunity to meet kind of your hero comedians. Like we've had Tommy Chong here, Colin Mockery, Andrea Martin from SCTV.
Yeah.
Brent Butt's been here, and like every year there's such a good lineup and a lot of surprises. Like this year, when I first saw the lineup, seeing Jan Arden on that list, I have to see her show, and because I remember she had a TV show for a year. I think it was called Jan. I think, but knowing that she's doing comedy now is just amazing.
Is there a core group of volunteers? You sort of alluded that that part of this is also just the group that you work with is fabulous.
I volunteer in the Winnipeg arts community for other festivals and for MTC, and there seems to be kind of a core group of people who also do that. So I met them through other festivals, and we sort of bring each other up to other events to help out with that as well.
In the lineup this year, who are you most looking forward to beyond Jan Arden?
Sean Majumder is coming. He's from This Hour's 22 Minutes. He's always good. The Debater Show is at the MCBI Jubilee Auditorium. That's going Saturday and Sunday afternoon next weekend. And there are just so many shows that are coming out this year that are kind of must-sees. And the great thing about the Comedy Festival is that there are shows for every budget. In fact, there are several free shows that are happening in the next week that people can take in.
If you mentioned the debaters, I know that you're going to be working that show. I know that I've been to a number of debater shows. What can you tell us about how the comedians on the debaters prepare for the debates, with each other in the green room before the show?
Yes, exactly. So each of them is given a debate topic, and they're paired up with another comedian, and the two of them go and sit in the corner of the green room and work out what each person is going to be saying about that topic. So when they go on stage in front of the audience, they pretty much have an idea of what they're going to talk about, whether they're for or against the particular debate topic. So they'll sit backstage, heads down, and work through it with the other person.
It's so interesting. I know that I had a glimpse backstage, and even watching Steve Patterson come up like right there on the spot with a number of things he's going to say. So there's a certain amount of a script, but so much of it is just being done while you're there. You really just get the glimpse.
Improv.
Yeah. Lots of improv. Love it, Danielle. Congratulations on all the years you've been volunteering.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Oh, you're very much welcome.
That's one of the volunteers that makes things go, and we are a community that needs them all. So thanks to everybody who works the Winnipeg Comedy Festival like Danielle Carrier has for the past 24 years. She will oversee the venue for the Debaters live shows this year. Now, both of those shows, I should warn you, are sold out, but there are lots of tickets to other shows, including Jan Arden's. So the festival takes place, of course, in various venues in Winnipeg and across the city till Sunday. Does begin today. If you want information on all of the shows and where to buy tickets, winnipegcomedyfestival.com is where you should go. And as a special treat this afternoon, Up to Speed from 3 to 6, our afternoon show, is going to turn into a live comedy club. So they have sets from 3 local comedians that it's going to be all part of the show, and they're competing for a big spot in the Comedy Festival. So that all kicks off here on CBC Radio 1 at 3:05. So if you listen Up to Speed, you know when it starts just after 3 here on 89.3. Well, speaking of Jan Arden, we thought, why not have a bit of her music, talking about her comedy, but of course you probably heard a song or two. This one's pretty big. Here at 7:44 a.m., this is Jan Arden and Insensitive.
How do you
Jan Arden and Insensitive on CBC. If you want to catch her comedy act, you can catch her in Winnipeg at the Winnipeg Comedy Festival. Her set is April 25th. Thanks for joining us here on the show. It's 11 minutes to 8 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on Information Radio. The morning show this morning at 0 in the city of Winnipeg. Well, we're watching the weather closely because we're in spring flooding time, of course. So those of us that aren't in threat of flooding are loving the warm weather at the beginning of the week and kind of going, oh, it's going to get cold again. If you're in a community that's expecting flooding, you probably want a little bit of cooler temperatures. Let's talk about Peguis. Man, they have been through it for decades. Spring in Peguis First Nation means flooding. According to Peguis, the Interlake community has seen on average flooding once every 2 years since the year 2000. Think about that. 2022 saw the evacuation of over 1,000 people. Many of those people still haven't returned home. After that flood, I spoke to then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and several other Liberal cabinet ministers about permanent flood protection in Peguis. They all committed to a plan. But here we are, 2026, and this spring a provincial flood bulletin warns of a high risk of flooding again. Residents are at risk of being evacuated again. You might have seen the Premier and community, they're all throwing sandbags already. The community's meeting today again before moving forward with evacuation plans. Now, CBC's Ian Fraze has been looking into these unfulfilled promises. He, of course, is our legislature reporter and with us now live. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So what exactly did Prime Minister Trudeau commit to when you went back in the archives and looked after that 2022 flood?
Well, he said simply the federal government needs to do more. There were evacuations, some big ones in 2011 and 2014. In both of those cases, more than 100 people were evacuated. And as we noted, some of those folks still not home. And then again in 2022, more than 1,000 people chased out of their homes. Here is the Prime Minister speaking on this program, Information Radio, on March of 2023 about some much needed changes.
Listen, we are in constant communication with Chief Hudson on what is needed both immediately around safety and repatriation efforts, but also around community infrastructure and flood mitigation. We know that we cannot keep doing this. We need to make sure that the community is safe going forward, even as we help people now, and that's what we're working very, very closely on them with.
And then remind us what we heard from cabinet ministers at the same time.
All of them the same, saying roughly the same thing. All of them committing to a plan. All of them speaking within a year of that moment. All on this program. And Harjit Sajjan, he's one of those folks. He was the Minister of Emergency Preparedness. And here's a portion of your chat with him in November of 2023.
A permanent flood protection solution at Peguis is something they've been asking for a long time. Is your government actively looking at that?
Yes, and I had a good discussion with the minister about this yesterday. I'll be talking. I know that's going through review, environmental review, so I've already asked my team to get me an update on this, so we'll get an idea what is needed.
So that review he's speaking about, an environmental review, it's never been made public. We've never heard anything about the status of that. 2 months later, January of 2024, Patty Hajdu, the Minister of Indigenous Services.
Is permanent flood protection in the conversation at this stage, yes or no?
Yes, it is. And in fact, I've been very clear with the previous chief and certainly with the community that we need to sit down together with the province to talk about permanent flood protection.
So as you know, Ian, and as people can hear, we're trying to get some answers. Did we see any follow through on any of those promises?
No, we haven't. And instead of, shovels in the ground, we're seeing sandbags in hand as demonstrated, over these past few weeks. Again, nothing publicly. We haven't heard about an update about that. Environmental review and no real commitments.
Now, other Manitoba communities have permanent flood protection. It is important to understand Peguis is a bit unique here. Explain to people why the process is seemingly more complicated for Peguis.
Yeah, so, there's a few factors. There's could arguably be the lack of political will here. We've got jurisdictional battles, perhaps, which often happens when it comes to a First Nation. Who's paying for it? Is it the province? Is it the feds? And then there is, as you alluded to, that reality of Peguis First Nation. It is on a flood zone. It's more than a century ago when this community was forced off its traditional lands into what is really a flood zone, as demonstrated by, a flood every 2 years. And, you look throughout the Red River Valley and you see so many ring dikes, and that's frankly not a practical option when it comes to Peguis, because there is a river that runs through it and people are on either sides of it. So you can't wrap a ring dike around it. that makes things a little more challenging.
Premier Rob Canoe was there last week in Peguis. Did he say anything about a permanent solution?
Yeah, so he said the same thing that we also heard from Peguis Chief Stan Byrne, that they're both saying shovels in the ground this summer. What that would look like, we've talked about the ring dike not being practical. We don't exactly know that yet. Canoe's saying, for his case, that actually getting permanent flood protection done would be an important legacy piece for him.
When I went to Peguis in 2011, I was a news reporter, and I covered the 2011 flood. And now that I'm in this role, I would love it. I'd be very proud if one of the things I could say that happened when I leave office is that we built permanent flood protection for Peguis. Community was asking about this yesterday, and I told them, well, hey, you got me on video saying that we're going to deliver permanent flood protection to Peguis twice today. If they're watching a news conference, now you got it 3 times.
A study completed in 2008 identified 4 possible options. One would be holding back some of the water upstream. Second, building a diversion channel. Third, raising the homes up on mounds. And fourth, building dikes along either side of the Fisher River or around the clusters of homes. That, of course, was nearly 20 years ago. If construction really will start this summer, we should hear shortly what those next steps will be. But of course, Marcy, the more pressing matter at hand is what appears to be a pending evacuation for the community right now.
It's so interesting when you having been in Peguis, just looking at what they're dealing with. I mean, it takes such an emotional toll. The other piece is there's other things here, like these are families, obviously, like anyone else's family. You've got your routines, you've got what you do for your life, you've got what you do for your health and mental health. Your kids are in school, so none of those things happen, right? The kids constantly get pulled from school. They have remote learning. I mean, so it's just it's kind of a mess. I know that the word that the Premier used last week when he was in studio, Ian, was diversion. So I know they haven't committed to a plan. We have nothing confirmed, but that's sort of one of the words he actually was floating around, which I guess when you say, the river running right through the community, and you can't ring dike it, but could you divert water? It'll be interesting to see what they come up with, but it certainly has been a long time coming. So,
and I'm sure for the folks there, they just want to see something happen.
Totally. Yeah, something happen. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
We'll cover this through the day today, of course, and see whether or not, what's going to happen today in terms of whether or not we're going to have evacuations happen in Peguis. So we're staying on that story. CBC's Ian Fraze, who is our legislative reporter, in studio with us live. If you want to read more about what's been happening in Peguis over the weekend and what we know so far, you can go to cbc.ca/Manitoba, and you can check out the latest there. All right, well, let's talk about washouts here. We've got a couple of things to note on your commute. Highway 475 from Road 163 to Road 164 is now closed. That closure is due to a sinkhole on the highway that's west of Foxwarren. Also, southwest of Russell, Highway 579 for about 5K north of Highway 478 is also closed because of a washout. And then in Winnipeg, not due to a washout, but we do have one big one to tell you about in terms of something affecting your commute. It is westbound Portage Avenue, restricted to one lane between Carleton and Edmonton. That will be all week. Because they're doing some extra construction work and bringing in a big tower crane to the Portage Place site. It's 0 in Winnipeg right now. Our high today is going to be pretty nice, a high of 15 degrees. It's going to be windy this morning, and things should clear up by this afternoon. We do have some cloud cover right now. Coming up in the next hour after 8 o'clock on the show, as you've been hearing on the news headlines this morning and on some of our newscasts, we've been talking about Rainbow Stage and one of the things that they're doing. Some dogs are going to be back live acting on Rainbow Stage. We're going to take you to the auditions after 8. Also after 8 on the show, a controversial AI technology is increasing in demand, but one expert warns it has a huge impact on the visually impaired. So what is it? And should you be worried about it? We'll find out after 8 o'clock here on the show. Right now, other headlines from Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, searchers who were looking for a Ukrainian man missing in Winnipeg say he has been found dead. Anatoly Ischenko had last been seen on Pembina Highway in January. Searchers say the 30-year-old's remains have been discovered in the Red River near Lindale Drive. Oksana Burchak says Ischenko's mother is now on her way to Winnipeg. And just out from Statistics Canada, the annual inflation rate jumped more than half a percentage point to 2.4% in March as the war in Iran sent fuel costs soaring. That's the national rate. In Manitoba, inflation took a full percentage point jump, up to 3% in March from 2% in February. You'll hear more on that coming up on World Report. And we'll also have more Manitoba news coming for you at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
World Report is next at 8. Stay with us on CBC 89.3 FM.
Today on Q.
What are you writing? Oh, I'm a music critic. Oh, cool.
Before she was a film director, Chandler Levac was a young woman music journalist in a male-dominated field who decided to bet on herself and travel to the musical mecca of Montreal. Chandler's made a movie about that time. It's called Mile End Kicks. She'll be here to tell you all about it. Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Studies have found that artificial intelligence and screens are eroding our ability to think deeply and pay attention. Now, one expert says we need to build brain exercise into our routines, the same way we do going to the gym. Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Iran is threatening retaliation against the United States for violating its ceasefire agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump says a U.S. Navy ship fired on and seized an Iranian commercial vessel. It happened in the Gulf of Oman. Now, peace talks between the U.S. and Iran are being called into question. Iran officials say they have no plans to show up. The CBC's Tom Perry has this report from Jerusalem.
Video released by the U.S. military appears to show a Navy destroyer issue a warning to the Iranian vessel.
Motor vessel Tosca, motor vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room, vacate your engine room.
And then open fire. Another video shows U.S. Marines seizing the ship, dropping from a helicopter onto its deck. The operation was announced by U.S. President Donald Trump on social media. The Navy, he wrote, stopped the ship in its tracks by blowing a hole in its engine room. The seizure and Trump's boasting come as the U.S. and Iran are set to resume peace talks in Pakistan, and as a 2-week ceasefire between the two countries winds down. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance will once again lead the American delegation seeking a resolution to the conflict, though it's unclear who will be across the table. A spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry said today there's no plan for a second round of negotiations with the U.S., at least for now, saying the U.S. has shown it's not serious about pursuing diplomacy. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Inflation rose to 2.4% in the month of March. That is more than a half percentage point over February. Statistics Canada is attributing the bump to the war in Iran, triggering soaring fuel prices. The agency says March's monthly increase in the price of gasoline is the largest on record. The CBC's senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has the details.
This will come as no surprise to anyone who's even passed by a gas station, but the primary driver of this boost to inflation is energy, specifically gasoline. On a monthly basis, prices surged 21.2%, the largest gas increase on record. The problem here is we are just starting to measure the increase. We've seen gas prices rise considerably just in the last couple of weeks alone, and that won't even show up until next month's numbers come out. And while many of us focus on gasoline prices, the real thing to watch, of course, is diesel. That powers the economy. Farmers, truckers, producers, they simply can't function without it. And as costs for diesel rise, the costs for everything diesel is used to grow, ship, and produce will inevitably rise as well. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
And starting today, diesel will cost 4 cents less per litre at the pump. Gasoline will cost 10 cents less per litre. Ottawa is suspending the federal fuel excise tax in response to the situation in the Strait of Hormuz and its effect on fuel prices. But as Madison Taylor discovered, tour boat operators in Newfoundland and Labrador are still worried for their summer business.
Our fuel tanks run from this part all the way
to here.
The fuel tank of the Gaffer 6 rings empty as she winters on dry land in Peguis, Newfoundland and Labrador. She's bound for the water again soon, but will need plenty of diesel to do it, says Luke Gatherall of Gatherall's Puffin and Whale Watch.
Well, it is a boatload, that's for sure.
Based in Bay Bulls, in its peak season, Gatherall's fills its 3,000-litre tank once every 10 days to show tens of thousands of tourists the wildlife here.
We don't let the gas gauge go below half.
Gatherall says a focus on efficiency is essential this summer in an industry that's already fraught with uncertain factors.
Mother Nature is a big one, wildlife is a big one, and fuel is now starting to become a big one as well.
And for larger operators, it's even more important if they want to get folks close to another natural wonder, icebergs.
Well, certainly a concern, for us.
Barry Rogers is owner and operator of Iceberg Quest Ocean Tours. For him, 4 cents off per litre doesn't make much of a dent when it comes to fueling multiple diesel vessels.
To us, that's pretty insignificant, really. If our tanks were empty right now, we'd be looking at anywhere about 20,000 litres.
The price of fuel isn't something these operators can control. But they're maintaining a positive attitude. And back in Bay Bulls, Bridget Gatherall says the family business can weather the storm.
This is the 3rd generation. We've survived for 40 years, over 40 years now. So we try and take it positive and put our best foot forward and do our best.
Madison Taylor, CBC News, St. John's.
Spring flooding continues to put properties at risk in parts of Ontario. People loading sandbags into trucks as rounds of rain continue to threaten several communities. Bob Carter is the mayor of Minden Hills.
It's generally coming from the upper lakes. All of those lakes are filled to capacity or overcapacity.
The township, about 2.5 hours north of Toronto, remains under a state of emergency. Several families have been forced to flee their homes. Meantime, it's a similar situation that's playing out in Quebec, where several communities are experiencing flooding. The rain and recent snowmelt have forced officials in parts of the province to close bridges as well as roads. As Kwabena Odira reports, officials are counting on a dip in those temperatures.
What I can say is that for now, everything is under control.
Quebec Premier Christine Frichette says the province is remaining vigilant because there are a few regions that are higher risk. The Gatineau region, the Laurentians, the Quebec City area, and Lanaudière north of Montreal are deemed to have medium or minor flooding. At least 600 homes were affected province-wide, with some evacuations.
I invite the citizens to remain informed because the situation could evolve very quickly, and it is important for people to stay aware of the evolution.
As water levels peak in the greater Montreal area, authorities are on high alert. Dikes and pumps have already been installed as a temporary protection measure. North of Quebec City, Rivière Jaune overflowed late Saturday, forcing the municipality of Lac-Beauport to close 2 bridges. Quebec's public security minister, Yann Lafrenière, says the cold weather Sunday improved the situation.
We might be suffering from the fact that this is cold, but believe me, we're happy at this because it's less melting, which means that's the reason why we don't receive a lot of water now. It's not raining, it's not melting, so it's perfect. If it can stay stable for a few days, we should be all right.
The province says it's in contact with municipalities that are affected, and it will do what it can to help and minimize the impact of major flooding. The Public Security Ministry says water levels are expected to recede later in the day. Kubino Duro, CBC News, Montreal.
Governor General Mary Simon will play a key role today at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. She'll be given an address at the formal opening of its 25th session. Simon is Canada's first Indigenous Governor General, and her office says participating in the forum will affirm Canada's leadership in advancing Indigenous rights. Her speech is expected to highlight the importance of meaningful engagement and respectful relationships between Indigenous peoples and states. And finally, a BC couple says what should have been a routine car rental turned into months of stress. Enterprise accused them of filling the gas tank with diesel instead of gas, and it billed them for almost $10,000 in repairs. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
The engine was nice and smooth, quiet.
Kelly Graves says the car he and his wife rented in Edmonton last year had no trouble. They filled it up with gas before driving 50 kilometers to Edmonton International Airport and returning the vehicle. But a week later, they got a call saying the engine had been damaged by diesel and they were on the hook.
Yeah, I was a little anxious and blood pressure went up a bit.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stress.
Yeah.
The Graves sent in receipts from the gas station showing they purchased gasoline the morning they returned the car. A photo of the gas pump showed it didn't have a diesel option. On top of that, the SUV had a gas tank that only fits a gasoline nozzle. Diesel nozzles are a few millimeters wider. But Enterprise dismissed that evidence and 9 months later sent a bill for $9,500. John Levan is a Vancouver mechanic who says a gas car filled with diesel would have serious issues, couldn't have made it more than 50K to the airport.
I don't even think it would have made it more than a few kilometers, if that.
The Graves hired Kelowna lawyer Abu Karana, who said car rental companies can't just point fingers, they have to prove their case.
They can't just issue an invoice and expect payment without any evidence. Right?
After Go Public asked questions, Enterprise dropped the claim, saying too much time had passed to confirm where the diesel came from. The Graves say they'll never rent from Enterprise again. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. If you're enjoying the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. Here we are, Monday. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and you're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. It's going to be pretty nice today in Winnipeg. Might even feel like spring. Imagine that. Stay tuned. We'll get into your forecast in just a moment. This half hour on the show, speaking of all things springtime, maybe you're getting ready to go to Rainbow Stage and sit outside and watch Legally Blonde. If you are this year, you're going to see some furry friends on stage. They had auditions for live dogs to take on roles in Legally Blonde at Rainbow this summer, and we're going to hear how they went because we couldn't resist. We sent a microphone to the rehearsal. In addition, this half hour on the program, controversial AI technology is increasing in demand, but one expert warns it has a huge impact on the visually impaired. So we're going to talk to a Winnipeg optometrist who's seen the demand for AI glasses double in the past 5 years. Stay tuned. Heather Wells is in our news center this Monday with developing stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, after repeated promises, Peguis First Nation hopes permanent flood protection is near. The First Nation is again on the verge of another major flood, despite federal vows of long-term mitigation measures. But Peguis' chief, Stan Bird, appears confident that's going to change. He hopes shovels could hit the ground this summer. We're going to hear more. And a Ukrainian man who went missing this winter has been found dead. Anatoly Ischenko's remains were recovered from the Red River near Lindale Drive over the weekend. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Mostly cloudy in Winnipeg. It's 1 degree. Drifting snow in Thompson. It is -1. In Brandon, mostly cloudy, and it is 5 degrees. It's going to be pretty decent here in the province today. Different situation, I should say southern Manitoba. It's different up north. So in Thompson, you are expecting snow to end this morning, a high of 2 degrees. And then you've got some rain showers in your forecast. Here in southern Manitoba for Brandon and Winnipeg, our highs are 15 degrees. And the story is going to be partial cloud cover, but the winds are south. Right now, they're already gusting up to 62 kilometers per hour. As mentioned, Winnipeg 1 degree now, and Brandon sitting at 4. Up in Thompson, by the way, current temperature is -3. All right, let's get to the morning commute details with Sierra Sanders.
Good morning, Marcy. We'll start with what's going on here in Winnipeg. Isabel and Logan, there's a stalled vehicle blocking the northbound curb lane. So you want to make sure to keep left to pass. According to Winnipeg Traffic Management Center, there's no delays so far, but something you might want to keep in mind there if that is on your commute this morning. As well, the big story, or should I say the reoccurring story this morning, is westbound Portage Avenue is down to 1 lane between Carlton Street and Edmonton. That starts today and that closure will run until this Friday, April April 24th. So something you want to keep in mind there if that is on your commute and you're heading westbound Portage there. May create some delays on westbound Portage and the surrounding areas there. Highways around Winnipeg, north of Winnipeg, surrounding are looking pretty good right now compared to last week when we had a couple of interesting weather come through the province. But just some highway closures to note there if you are heading out there today. Highway 579 for about 5 kilometers north of Highway 478 is closed, and that closure is due to a washout. That's located southwest of Russell, Manitoba, and as well Highway 475 from Road 163 to Road 164 is closed, and that is due to a sinkhole on the highway there, and that's just west of Foxwarren. So a couple things to keep in mind there if you're getting out on the highways. But other than that, things are looking pretty good. The commuter line has been pretty quiet this morning, so it sounds like things are moving smoothly out there. But if that's not the case, there's still a little bit of time left in the show. Give me a call. The number's 204-788-3093.
Well, AI, or artificial intelligence, is in our homes, it's on our phones, it's also in our glasses. It was one of the many conversations actually recently at the Manitoba One Vision Conference that was held over the weekend. That's an event where optometrists learn about the latest in eye care. Dr. Nadine Shelton was at the conference. She says that these types of specs are increasingly in demand, but she warns it could have an impact on the visually impaired, and she's here this morning to talk about these AI glasses. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how do they work, Dr. Shelton? When you pick them up and put them on, how does this actually work?
Well, the temples, the arms, are going to be a little bit thicker and wider than your regular glasses. And then there's a camera on the front. It's very subtle, but there's a little camera. There's a little light that goes on when the camera is active. And you talk to the glasses and they can turn the camera on, camera off. You can listen to the radio. You can translate someone who's speaking a different language into English. There's lots of uses for them, and it's pretty neat, actually.
And you're hearing the things then through there's a speaker that you hear then? Like, can you ask it to play a song for you, or does it show you something? What does it actually do?
So it's all audio. So you can hear, like, it'll talk to you. You can hear it. I had one of my staff had a pair, so we were practicing the translation app where I was speaking French and it was translating English into his ear. I guess it's something with it that doesn't go in your ear, but somehow you can hear it because it's sitting on your temple, on the bones on the side. So it was pretty neat.
So what kind of increase in demand have you been seeing for these?
I've had people who, let's say, like doing like traveling, adventuring. They want to just have the glasses on and not worry about using their phones to take pictures or videos. You can say, hey, Meta, take a photo, or things like that. And again, if you're an adventurer and you want to do a video, if you're trying to video something and you don't want to have your camera out or be too have that be cumbersome. So this is a sort of a good way to use a camera without having to actually use the camera. Mm-hmm. So you just sort of tell it to take a picture and it does it.
I was mentioning that you've seen demand. Is it fivefold go up in the last couple of years?
I've seen a lot. I mean, I'm an optometrist. I also own an optical that sells glasses. So I've seen a lot of people come in and ask for them. I've had some staff and friends and family ask if I sell them. I also work at the CNIB, which is the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. And I've seen a lot of increase in use there with people who are visually impaired or blind because there's a camera on the glasses. Yeah. So there's an app called Be My Eyes. You can sort of turn on or tell Meta to turn on, and it will call someone essentially who can see. And because they're using your camera, they have access through your camera, they can see what you're looking at. So if you're visually impaired or blind, you can say, hey, I'm trying to find this on the table. Where is it? I'm looking in my fridge. Where's the ketchup? So it does things like that, which is pretty cool.
And I got that wrong because I said fivefold increase, and it's actually in the last 5 years, you think it's doubled. So that's where I had the five in my head from. Is that accurate?
Right.
For people asking about them, I guess?
At least in my case. I mean, I'm not sure, I can't speak for everyone, but I have seen an increase in questions and people asking about them.
In terms of the impact on the visually impaired, as you were just outlining there, is it all positive, do you think, in terms of what these AI glasses, how they could benefit people?
I mean, I think any technology can be taken on a negative way at some point because people will try to abuse what it can do. But in this sense, I see it from people who are doing video photography, people who are translating things. And of course, I see a lot of people who are in the visually impaired and blind world who benefit from the fact that the AI can tell them what they're looking at. Or, hey, I'm looking at this thing, what color is it? I had one patient who said her kids get dressed in the morning, so she'll ask the camera, what color t-shirt is my daughter wearing? So I want to match the pants to not clash.
We actually have a clip to play for you. CBC Nova Scotia did this radio segment about concerns, some of the concerns around these AI glasses. They got an email from someone, though, who lives with vision loss and wears Meta Ray-Bans, so Ray-Ban glasses. His name is Jeff Overmars. He's from Dartmouth. Here's what he said.
The Meta AI pairing with the Ray-Ban smart glasses allow you to engage real-time, live artificial intelligence to describe your surroundings. So you can actually ask Meta through the camera on the glasses to describe what's in front of you. And you can be very specific in your prompts. You know, I'm looking for this. Where's the entry to this room? Or where's the exit? Or where might I find a light switch on the wall? And it's a particular help when it comes to reading text.
You mentioned that you work for the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. Here you do some work with them. What difference does that kind of independence make for people? What have you heard on that front?
People are very excited that they are able to gain independence. This is such a positive thing because if you can give someone some independence, their self-esteem goes up. It just makes life easier. So anything that can make your life a little bit easier is a positive thing. And people are very excited about these glasses and what they can do. And it just means that they don't have to ask someone for help or call someone. They can just do it on their own. And that's huge. That's great.
Why do you think there's a buzz about them now? Because these things have been around actually for a little while.
I mean, they keep on improving the technology. I think there also is more styles, more colors, there's more frame choices. Again, if you look at sort of technology, they come out with one version of something and they're always improving the flow, the accuracy, when they come out with sort of a new and improved version. So I think it's just improved over time.
Thanks so much for telling us about them. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And can I say that we always encourage people to love their glasses, but also come see your optometrist. Let us check the health of your eyes and let's make sure that you can see well and everything is good going on in the visual system.
Do you know what? I did forget to ask you a question and I want to add it because it's an important one. I didn't ask you about consent because I know that CBC's reported people using AI glasses to film others without consent and even students cheating on exams. We did some stories nationally about that. How much of a concern is that? And where does it's interesting because you might just be there selling someone a pair of glasses, but then all of a sudden these other ethical issues are going to come up.
Well, I think with most technology, there's always something that's going to come up as being not as ethical, or someone's trying to use it for something it's not meant for. I mean, general education of people in general to just do the right thing and use it for what it's made for. But there's always going to be people who try to do something. And again, yes, you should ask for consent. Yes, the glasses have a light that goes on when you are recording, so you could see this. I mean, if you're buying this technology, it's also your responsibility to use it the way it should be used. So it's hard to say, oh, everyone's going to do this and it's bad. I think most people are pretty good with doing the right thing and using something in a positive way. So I think you just have to hope for the best in this situation, because the positives really do outweigh the negatives, especially in the visually impaired and blind populations.
All right, Dr. Shelton, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's Dr. Nadine Shelton. She was at the conference I was referring to this weekend. She says these types of specs are increasingly in demand through what she's seen in her practice, at least. So we will talk more about them moving forward. I actually have a colleague that wears these glasses. Kind of cool. Time right now is 8:22. Well, let's, as we tick toward the end of the show, let's end with something happy, shall we? You might have heard a little bit of this on the news this morning. Competition was furry and fierce yesterday at Rainbow Stage Auditions. The company's casting 2 dog roles for their production of Legally Blonde this summer. French Bulldogs were auditioning for the role of Rufus and Chihuahuas for Bruiser Woods. CBC's Santiago Arias Orozco met with some of the furry contenders. 13-year-old Kendall Betker and her grandmother's dog, Sunny, did extensive preparation for the audition.
She's like the perfect role, we think. She looks like Brewster, and yeah, she's sweet and good with people.
Tell me, how did you prepare Sunny for this?
We just kind of did all the tricks. That's really all she needed to know.
What were the tricks? Tell me a bit about that.
Jumping into a bag and like dancing, or like laying down. We still have to work on that. Or like walking on 2 feet.
And how long did it take you to prepare her for that?
Like a week, maybe.
That's fast.
Yeah, she's a fast learner.
How did you feel when you like see her like do this on her own now?
Pretty happy. It's like funny to watch too.
Have you done anything like this before, or is the first time you training your own dog?
First time.
So what would it mean for you to see your grandmother's dog on the production?
Pretty cool, because I already have tickets to the show too, so that'd be fun to see her on the stage.
I'm looking at this little dog in the video if you're watching our live stream of the show this morning. Just a tiny chihuahua wearing a little pink dress, little bow on top of her head. She seemed very quiet and friendly, tail wagging back and forth, jumping in and out of the bag, doing her thing, and being held there during the interview by 13-year-old Kendall Betker, who spoke with CBC about her grandma's dog, Sunny, auditioning for Bruiser and Legally Blonde. Now, Rainbow Stage Artistic Director Carson Natras was looking for a pup with poise. Here's what he said about the process.
First time we've ever done dog auditions before, so.
Tell me a bit about that. Why would we make the call with this one?
Well, yes. In the past we have had animals on stage, but as marionettes. So we had control over our Toto in Wizard of Oz. The dog could pee on the witch's hat on cue because we're puppeteering the dog. The last time we had a live dog on stage was Sandy in Annie in 2012, and so this is a first for us as a creative team since 2012. And I think this musical is based on, of course, Legally Blonde, the film, and Bruiser, the dog, is such a huge part of it. And we really think it's a value added to bring a beautiful, loving dog onto the stage that really elevates, even you chatting with me right now, I feel like we need positive stories in the world these days, and I just think it's one of those, they say you're not supposed to act with children and dogs on stage, but we do it all the time because it just lifts people's spirits.
That was Rainbow Stage Artistic Director Carson Natras talking about dog auditions for the production of Legally Blonde, and some pretty cuties on the video there as well. So we'll see who ends up taking the roles on stage. Carson mentioning there that the last time there was a live dog in the production was when Annie was on stage at Rainbow Stage. So we're looking for some special music for that. Man, I loved Annie growing up. If you're of a certain age, then I'll tell you what, you might know it really well. Eileen Quinn came out with the movie. She was the lead in that movie back in the early 80s, and then that soundtrack went crazy. It is right now 1 degree in Winnipeg, and in Brandon it is 5 degrees. Up in Thompson this morning it is -1. In southern Manitoba we are going to have a pretty decent day ahead. It's going to look a little like spring today, properly a high of 15 degrees, which I think is the highest we've been in so many weeks. And then we are expecting a clear night tonight and a low down to -2. Well, let's go back and celebrate a little bit of Annie and the Pawditions, as you just heard from the soundtrack. Here's Dumb Dog.
Dumb dog, why are you following me? I ain't got a crumb, dog, how about letting me be? I ain't gonna feed you, ain't got a scrap for you, need you. Don't give a rap for you, dumb dog. Dumber than they come, dog. You're the most presuming dog that a human could know.
Love it. Just a little ditty from Annie, remember? And then they go, she tries to prove it's her dog. She tries a whole bunch of different names. Finally, the dog comes to her. We'll see what happens at Rainbow Stage when they have a live dog on stage for the first time in many years. Well, we want to mention something very special happening this afternoon. If you're a regular listener to Up to Speed, then you want to certainly be tuned in today for the special edition of the afternoon show. We are celebrating that the Winnipeg Comedy Festival is 25 years old. And so that means today, Up to Speed is going to turn into a bit of a comedy club this afternoon. There's live musicians who are going to be there performing, and so they will be a part of the show. CBC's own Jim Agapito is going to be featured in Laughing with the Stars as well. I want to point to that this week. That's coming up April 22nd at the gas station. But when it comes to today's show, 3 live musicians are going to do their sets, and you'll hear interviews as well with longtime festival performers and volunteers as the 25th anniversary of the Comedy Festival is being celebrated here at CBC. Also, I want to mention that as part of the Comedy Festival, the Debaters is celebrating the 20th anniversary of their show. So they've got the show hosted by Dave Hemstad and Steve Patterson coming up this weekend, Thursday, as well. If you want to read any more information about the Comedy Festival that does begin tonight, head to cbc.ca/Manitoba/community and you can find more information. Well, I want to take a moment to thank those people who are working on the program today. Our live Studio 15 team, Sierra Sanders, May McKillop, and Darren Mirage. In our news center, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolo, Darren Bernhardt, Alana Cole, and Megan Ketchison. As well on the program with contributions today, reporter Ian Fraze. Associate producers Chloe Friesen, Michaela Van Kooten, as well as Sophia Peralta Barone. And we also had an item as well just in this half hour from Santiago Arias Orozco. So thanks to everybody who worked hard on the program and who helped contribute to our Monday show. In traffic, just be reminded of one big thing in Winnipeg, because this is going to continue through the week. Westbound Portage Avenue restricted to 1 lane between Carleton and Edmonton. So that did start today. It's going to go through Friday, and it could create delays on westbound Portage and the surrounding routes. So this is all because of some of the Portage Place redevelopment that's going on, and they're bringing in a big tower crane there. So just note that. It may back you up, especially once we get into those busy rush hour times on Portage Ave. Right now it's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It is 1 degree. The climb is beginning. We're headed all the way up to an above seasonal high of 15. The sky is going to clear as well, and that wind is going to ease up somewhat. After repeated promises, Peguis First Nation hopes permanent flood protection is near. The First Nation is again on the verge of another major flood, despite federal vows of long-term mitigation measures. But Peguis Chief Stan Bird appears confident that's going to change, striking an optimistic tone, speaking with reporters.
Positive. I think we formed some good relationships, strong partnerships with the province of Manitoba and the federal government. So we're looking to, shovels could hit the ground as early as this summer.
The federal government has only said it is working with Peguis and Fisher River Cree Nation to develop some long-term protections. Searchers who were looking for a Ukrainian man missing in Winnipeg say he has been found dead. Anatoly Ischenko had last been seen on Pembina Highway in January. His disappearance triggered a search party that saw more than 100 people scouring St. Vital Park and Crescent Drive Park in early April. Another search had been scheduled for Sunday, but organizer Oksana Burchak says Ischenko's remains had been recovered from the Red River.
This is the bright example of very smart, good, hard-working guy who would have been benefit to the society and to the community, but instead we lost him.
She says Ischenko left the Victoria Hospital without being seen for panic attacks and then went to the University of Manitoba, last seen wandering outside without proper winter gear before he disappeared. She says his mother is now flying to Winnipeg in the coming weeks to bid farewell to her son. Well, people came in droves to the Fort Garry Community Centre to voice opposition to a possible expansion of Thermea Nordic Spa. Joy Stadnichuk wanted to learn more about the potential plans. She says she was impressed to see how many people from the area came to voice concerns and ask questions.
It really speaks to this is a neighborhood where people care about the neighborhood, they care about the green space. And I love this sort of grassroots movement that started out of it. And it's kind of like power to the people.
And the people in the area worry an expansion would impact green space at Crescent Drive Park and worsen parking and traffic issues. Thermea says the idea is still in its early stages and will consult with community and share more details when the plans are more developed. Statistics Canada this morning says inflation jumped to 2.4% nationally in March. The agency says soaring fuel prices due to the war in Iran led to the annual rate of inflation rising more than half a percentage point. And it says the 21.2% monthly increase in the price of gasoline for the month was the largest on record. In Manitoba, inflation took a full percentage point jump, up to 3% in March from 2% in February. Now, Canadians are seeing a break at the pumps today as Ottawa's temporary suspension of some fuel taxes takes effect. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced he would pause fuel excise taxes to take some of the sting out of the surging gas prices as a result of that U.S. and Israeli war in Iran. Canadians are likely to save 10 cents a litre on regular gasoline and 4 cents on a litre of diesel until Labor Day. After more than a decade of using puppets in the role of pets, Rainbow Stage is bringing back real pups to the stage. Auditions were held over the weekend to pick 2 dogs for the musical adaptation of the movie Legally Blonde. At least 20 of the dogs showed twirls, jumps, and other tricks, putting their talent on display. Amy Brownstein brought her friend's dog Luca to the audition.
It would make me happy, and it would be a big time commitment, that's for sure. But I would be up for the challenge, and I think it would be lots of fun to do and bring people a lot of joy because she's super cute and very, very sweet.
Opening night of Rainbow Stage's Legally Blonde is August 13th. You can find more news updated throughout your day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Gotta say, I mean, we've got bulldogs. I really hope it's not going to be hot when they cast those bulldogs because they do not do well with heat.
They're going to just melt, just sit there and melt.
Seriously. You have them on the end of the leash and sometimes they'll just like lay down. Like, it's over now. Yeah. And I always swore I would never put the dog into the carrier or anything like that. But I know why people do it. Because, they can be hefty, man. Carrying around a 40-pound dog up the sidewalk is pretty embarrassing.
Would you say it's a little bit of a risk to have an animal try to be an actor on stage?
Oh, for sure. But the best part about it, because I actually remember Annie with that live dog years ago. I'm dating myself, I know. But it's also the joy of it too, right? Because if the dog does something quirky, you can see the actors trying and then everybody laughs. Because if you have a dog, it kind of can be hit or miss.
Produce some memorable moments.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks for the stories this morning, Heather. That's Heather Wells in our news center with us. So last quick look at our forecast here. As we've been mentioning, Winnipeg and Brandon, 15 today. Going to be windy this afternoon. Winnipeg's 1 right now. Brandon is 5 already. And then up in Thompson, you're sitting at -1 currently. And for your day, you're expecting snow to end this morning. 60% chance of some rain showers this afternoon with a high above 0 at 2. And Sierra Sanders is here with our final look at traffic.
Hi, Marcy. Yeah, we were hearing about a stalled vehicle blocking the northbound curb lane at Isabel and Logan. That stall has been cleared. There's no delays there, so things should be moving smoothly through there. As well, keep an eye on westbound Portage Avenue this week. It's down to 1 lane between Carleton Street and Edmonton from today, Monday, until Friday, April 24th. And that might cause some delays there on your drive, so keep that in mind.
All right. Thanks very much, Sierra, for the morning. And stay tuned because on The Current today, Mac Galloway is interviewing Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen about his historical trip on the Artemis II mission. So stay tuned. That's coming up next right here on CBC. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of Information Radio. And don't forget, Up to Speed this afternoon is turning into a Comedy Fest club. So you can hear 3 comedians performing as well as hearing people celebrating 25 years of the Comedy Festival in Winnipeg. Take care. Thanks for listening.